1021. The result of Daogan. Nearly 300 years have passed, and presumably the Xuanwang realm is a bit further from the immortal ruins. Yet, it still hasn't collapsed. Craftsman Zhu Shi's meaning was self-evident. Li Fan nodded in agreement, saying, worlds are annihilated, yet Xuanwang survives. There must be countless cultivators like you and me who fled from other cultivation realms to seek refuge here. However, we all lie low cautiously, perhaps intimidated by the power protecting the Xuanwang realm. To be honest, I have some understanding of formations. When I first arrived in Xuanwang, I observed a massive formation vaguely enveloping the entire world. Its energy level was so high that it could be compared to the legendary immortal grade formations. Feeling horrified, I have always kept a low profile. I wouldn't dare to be like you, making the Lingyuan sect such a grand spectacle. Craftsman Zhu Shi smiled wryly upon hearing this. It seems you've been keeping an eye on me for a while. After a moment, Craftsman Zhu Shi explained, the Lingyuan sect may seem large, but it's just a rabble. The Myriad Immortals Alliance doesn't take it seriously at all. It's just that Nine Mountains Prefecture has a special geographical environment and borders the Five Elders Society, making it a mixed bag. Rather than carefully managing it, it's better to let the Lingyuan sect grow wildly. At the very least, I have to hand over a portion of the massive source power I harvest each time. I just don't know what has happened in these 300 years. A trace of gloom flashed in Craftsman Zhu Shi's eyes. Li Fan immediately smiled and said, fellow Taoist is just scaring himself. In fact, the Lingyuan sect's development has been thriving all these years. It's just that it recently suffered an unexpected disaster, being implicated by the sudden appearance of the celestial Venerable's Dharma idol that wiped out Nine Mountains Prefecture with a glance. As he spoke, Li Fan projected the scene of the celestial Venerable's Dharma idol displaying its power for the first time. Craftsman Zhu Shi glanced at it, his face twitching, and exclaimed, what did it do to provoke the celestial Venerable to take action? Naturally, it chose to side with the Five Elders Society in the war between two behemoths, Li Fan explained. Craftsman Zhu Shi's face was filled with disbelief, and then he said resentfully, what a blunder. After a moment of incredulity, Craftsman Zhu Shi seemed to have thought of something and said with some suspicion, that's not right. I clearly feel that there are still nearly 1 million people in the world practicing the common people's spiritual origin art. Oh, that, Li Fan replied calmly, I couldn't bear to see your foundation destroyed, so I took over. Craftsman Zhu Shi was completely stunned upon hearing this, you. In an instant, his thoughts raced, and he understood everything. No wonder you discovered my location so soon after I was resurrected. No, you must have found the means of my resurrection long ago, right? Craftsman Zhu Shi's expression changed constantly. Li Fan nodded slightly, fellow Taoist, rest assured, I have no malicious intentions. Otherwise, I wouldn't have told you everything truthfully. Oh, then what exactly are you? Craftsman Zhu Shi's face was uncertain. Naturally, I see that fellow Taoist skills are extraordinary, possessing the creation of heaven and earth. Therefore, I want to invite fellow Taoists to join us and work together for a great cause. Li Fan said with a solemn expression. Afterwards, Li Fan explained in detail the rhetoric of the Myriad Worlds Alliance and the restoration of the compassionate true immortal Tao lineage of the Red Dust. There's actually a true immortal Tao lineage? Craftsman Zhu Shi narrowed his eyes, skeptical. It wasn't until Li Fan passed over a wisp of golden myriad spirit immortal dew that Craftsman Zhu Shi was once again inexplicably shocked. Source power essence. He blurted out a term different from what Hundred Flowers Taoist had described. Oh, what does this source power essence mean? In our myriad prosperity realm, we call this myriad spirit immortal dew, Li Fan asked with interest. Craftsman Zhu Shi's eyes were fixed on the object in Li Fan's hand, as if he had seen a peerless treasure. Source power is the original power that drives the improvement of a cultivator's realm. And source power essence is the fundamental power that causes source power to be born. Or, according to the popular saying in some cultivation realms in the past, the realm is the core, and cultivation is the fruit. Source power essence is the main body of the Tao flower, and as for the source and origin of everything, it is the Tao that drives the development of all things. Li Fan's mind recalled Hundred Flowers Taoist's description of the myriad spirit immortal dew. It was the part discarded by the nameless true immortal in the process of absorbing the traces of Tao. Fellow Taoist's analogy is indeed very novel, Li Fan said thoughtfully as he constantly comprehended these words. Craftsman Zhu Shi, on the other hand, kept staring at the source power essence in his hand, unwilling to look away. Is the Dao flower poisonous? Li Fan suddenly asked. Craftsman Zhu Shi was stunned for a moment, and then understood Li Fan's meaning. After pondering for a moment, he explained, it is harmless to believers. Those who do not believe will be retaliated against. It should be known that the root of Tao and the flower of Tao are not powers that we cultivators who have not yet ascended to immortality can master. If we want to use it, we must rely on immortals. But immortals are already existences beyond our comprehension. While they pursue the root of Tao, they will inevitably leave their own traces. Therefore, the Tao flower, Tao fruit, and Tao core that are generated are all stained with their own unique aura. Ordinary flowers in the world are rooted, branched, flowered, and fruited. But we cultivators pursue Tao by seeking the cause from the fruit. Seeking the source of everything, the root of Tao. If it is such a vague and ethereal matter, if you have not personally realized it and want to take a shortcut, if you have not fully comprehended the true meaning of the power of Tao fruit, you will rush to trace the root of Tao. You can only rely on the achievements of others. I wonder if fellow Taoist understands what I'm saying. Perhaps because he had personally seen the real Tao flower, Craftsman Zhu Shi was so excited that he spoke a lot in one breath. According to fellow Taoist's statement, it seems that there is not much harm in using the power of Tao flower. Li Fan asked. That's natural, as long as you don't pursue other Tao roots in the future, Craftsman Zhu Shi replied. Li Fan thought for a while and instantly understood, one root bears one fruit. That's right, once stained with the power of Tao flower, it is almost impossible to escape for a lifetime. If there is a chance to go further in the future, you can only follow the path that has been set and pursue the Tao root that has been bound in the dark. However, there is already a true immortal who has taken the lead on the road ahead. Craftsman Zhu Shi smiled, so, either become the other party's believer and appendage, or kill him and become the strongest in the Tao path. Oh, right, there's one more thing I forgot to say. Fruits are born from roots. If the roots wither, the fruits will also wither. Therefore, once the immortal at the source dies, the existences downstream who use his power to stain the Tao flower will also die violently. But after all, they are immortals, and the probability of their fall is much smaller than that of ordinary cultivators. 1022. The true Tao Gong of the Dharma. No need to worry so much. As he spoke, Craftsman Hermit suddenly fell silent, seemingly reminded of the calamity that befell the immortal realm many years ago. But then again, it's hard to say. After all, the path to seeking the root of the Tao is fraught with peril. Even ordinary immortals, those who are not nameless true immortals united with the Tao, inevitably face the risk of falling, Craftsman Hermit sighed. With these words, a long silence once again descended between the two. Li Fan seemed to be digesting these words, his brow furrowed, lost in thought. After a long while, he finally came back to his senses and said, what you said earlier, that those who do not believe will suffer backlash, does that refer to the consequences of seeking another root of the Tao? Correct, Craftsman Hermit nodded. Not only will it alert the source immortal, but it may even cause the Tao's root itself to tremble. Because, based on the information we currently have, each root of the Tao is quite pure, independent, and exclusive. Of course, perhaps beyond the realm of nameless true immortals, there exist even more unimaginable realms where all Taos merge. But that is entirely speculation, without even a shred of evidence. And the Tao root consequence theory I mentioned earlier is a conclusion reached by our heavenly calculation realm through research and analysis of the body of ancestor. It was a consensus among everyone back then, so it shouldn't be wrong, Craftsman Hermit said, a hint of sadness flashing in his eyes. I observe that the spirit origin art for all living beings you created also seems to have a shadow of this Tao root consequence, Li Fan said in a timely manner. Hee, you noticed that as well. Not only the spirit origin art for all living beings, but even the cultivation method of this Xuanwang world, which defies the natural order to attain longevity, actually secretly aligns with the true meaning of the Tao root. Craftsman Hermit lowered his voice, his tone deep. Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission, this person, although he has not yet reached the realm of immortals, has used this method to achieve control over the cultivators downstream, truly terrifying and formidable. Although he is not an immortal, he already possesses some of the powers of an immortal. Just like I said before, either become his believer and cultivate his methods, or directly kill him. Craftsman Hermit clearly held Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission in great awe, as he whispered. Li Fan frowned upon hearing this, then according to what you're saying, if Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission were to suddenly die for some reason, it might even affect all the cultivators in the Xuanwang world. Craftsman Hermit shrugged. That possibility cannot be ruled out. That's why I say this person is extremely terrifying. I even suspect that he is a reincarnated immortal. Otherwise, it would be impossible to apply the Tao root theory so skillfully. Li Fan frowned deeply. This was something he had never considered before. It seemed that the difficulty of dealing with Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission was far beyond his consideration. By the way, I see that your two guardian creation golden men look exactly like Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission. Is there some mystery in this? Could it be that your heavenly calculation realm's puppet ancestor also looks like this? After a while, Li Fan suddenly raised the question in his heart. Craftsman Hermit quickly shook his head. You misunderstand. Ancestor's appearance is incomplete and unrecognizable. The reason why I designed the creation golden men to look like Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission is probably just because it is more in line with the Xuanwang heavenly Tao. Fearing that Li Fan would not understand, Craftsman Hermit took the initiative to explain. You see, my heavenly calculation puppets are made with source power and many other components. But the creation golden men are purely composed of source power. Although it is source power gathered by cultivating the spirit origin art for all living beings, it is ultimately influenced by Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission in the Xuanwang world. Therefore, in order to maintain its structural stability, it was built according to his appearance. A few words dispelled the doubts in Li Fan's heart. If it was confirmed that Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission was a reincarnated immortal, then he would have to be even more low-key in the Xuanwang world in the future. But from the current situation, even if he is not a true immortal, he is not far from it. In that case, what is your attitude towards joining our Myriad Realms Union? After a long silence, Li Fan asked again. Craftsman Hermit did not hesitate at all. Of course, I can join. Now that the immortal path is severed, ascending to immortality and seeking the root of the Tao has long become an ethereal matter. And to have the opportunity to join this Red Dust Compassionate True Immortal, Craftsman Hermit recited the name with reverence. It can be said to be a great honor. You must know that now that calamities are spreading across the star field, a surviving true immortal is definitely the backer that countless cultivators dream of. Craftsman Hermit's eyes were full of longing and yearning. If we can use the power of the true immortal, the various plans that were suspended in the past due to insufficient conditions should also be able to be implemented smoothly. Craftsman Hermit's last sentence revealed the real reason why he was willing to join the Myriad Realms Union. To avoid arousing Li Fan's suspicion, Craftsman Hermit quickly took the initiative to explain, we gained too much from studying Ancestor's puppet. The heavenly calculation puppet is just the most basic of ideas. You can also see that what drives it is source power, which is the fruit of the Tao. And if we can use the power of the flower of the Tao to create a puppet. Craftsman Hermit's eyes shone with anticipation, we will definitely be able to create a true immortal puppet with strength that crushes ordinary cultivators. Although it cannot be compared with a true immortal, it should not be a problem to fight against cultivators in the longevity realm. Craftsman Hermit was full of confidence. As he spoke, he looked again at the golden power of wishes that always surrounded Li Fan's fingertips. Which is the so-called power of the flower of the Tao? Li Fan nodded slowly upon hearing this. He retracted the golden power of wishes back into his calamity body and stored it away. Since that's the case, then come with me to pay respects to the Red Dust Compassionate True Immortal statue. Craftsman Hermit only felt a blur before his eyes, and he appeared in a circular hall. In front of him, a stone statue with an indistinguishable face stood tall. And the aura felt from the statue was very similar to the aura left on Ancestor's body many years ago. That all belonged to the power of the immortal. Craftsman Hermit no longer had any doubts in his heart. Willingly, he followed Li Fan and sincerely recited the oath of joining the union. Almost at the instant the oath was completed, Li Fan felt that among all the members of the union, the most devout power was connected to him. Even stronger than Dao Xuanzi, who was previously evaluated as a most sincere seeker of the Tao. Perhaps it is because he has truly seen the power of an immortal that he has become more devout and cannot resist, Li Fan thought silently. But to follow the path of a true immortal already in this world, to be a running dog. Clearly, it was not something Li Fan would do. Of course, occasionally, for a generation or two, borrowing power was also acceptable. 1023. The source of power elevates all things. After paying respects to the faceless true immortal stone statue, the relationship between the two parties seemed to have grown closer. Fellow Taoist Qiaogong, you have worked hard to establish the Spirit Origin sect to collect source power. What exactly is it for? To be honest, I only took over the Spirit Origin sect because I valued the convenience of the common people's Spirit Origin art, which allows multiple people to cultivate the same technique. As for how to extract and utilize source power, I currently know nothing about it. While showing layman Chaogong around the spirit wood world, where the flesh and blood puppets used for automatically cultivating the common people's Spirit Origin art were located, Li Fan asked with a gentle expression. Having a separate small world as a base is indeed much more convenient. When I was in the Spirit Origin sect, I didn't dare to blatantly place these flesh and blood cultivator puppets in the square like this. I always had to conceal them, otherwise, the people below would become restless and all sorts of troubles would arise. Layman Chaogong said with envy during the tour. Only then did he answer Li Fan. Apart from being used to create celestial mechanism puppets, most of the source power should have been stored by me for emergencies. Theoretically speaking, every cultivator can use purified wish power to quickly improve their cultivation. I wonder if fellow Taoist has heard of the legends of immortal sects bestowing rewards, allowing their disciples to attain enlightenment overnight and break through several major realms in succession. This is the effect of source power. However, in this Xuanwang world, layman Chaogong clicked his tongue and shook his head slightly. This damn place is indeed not suitable for cultivators to live in. Not to mention the resources required to break through each major realm, the bottleneck of the calamity of heaven alone is much more stringent than in other cultivation worlds. Li Fan also echoed. Unfortunately, there is no choice anymore. Layman Chaogong sighed. However, these restrictions only exist among cultivators. Simple creations like celestial mechanism puppets are not subject to these restrictions. From this, it can be inferred that there are also no restrictions on the use of magical treasures. Perhaps this is why the Myriad Immortals Alliance charges me a large amount of source power each time. Layman Chaogong said meaningfully. You mean, the Celestial Mystery Mirror? Li Fan reacted instantly. Not just that. Without a doubt, the Celestial Mystery Mirror is an immortal artifact. Source power is actually better than nothing for it. However, within the Myriad Immortals Alliance, all magical treasures that have not been promoted to immortal artifacts can be enhanced by absorbing source power. Layman Chaogong smiled. So it has such a wonderful use. Li Fan looked at the end dissolution disk in his sea of consciousness, lost in thought. Next, with the help of the warm-hearted layman Chaogong, a celestial mechanism fortress was built next to the flesh and blood puppet square in the spirit wood world. It was shaped like a sphere, with two constantly rotating metal rings around the outside. When layman Chaogong finished engraving on these two metal rings, Li Fan vaguely sensed that the overflowing source power that was originally pouring into his clone, Li Qing, was now converging towards the celestial mechanism fortress instead. Like a gentle stream turning into a raging river, forming droplets of solid gold, dripping and storing inside the sphere. Upon closer observation, Li Fan discovered that these golden source power droplets were clearly of a lower level than the source power essence formed by the faceless true immortal stone statue, which was the flower of Tao. However, it still held a fatal attraction for cultivators. Although it wouldn't cause them to lose their minds like seeing the essence of heaven and earth, it would still arouse waves of greed from the depths of their hearts. Finally done. It seems that the restrictions of heaven and earth are weaker in the small world, making it much easier to guide source power than in the Xuanwang world. Layman Chaogong wiped the sweat from his forehead, looking somewhat delighted. This thing is called a celestial mechanism fortress. I suppose it has protective functions in addition to receiving source power. Li Fan asked pointedly. Layman Chaogong did not hide anything. That's right, because our celestial mechanism realm has limited resources, we often pursue the ultimate integration of functions when developing creations. Layman Chaogong gently pointed at the sphere not far away, and a burst of light flashed. This newly built structure suddenly disappeared in front of Li Fan. Oh, interesting, not only was it impossible to observe with the naked eye, but even divine sense could not detect it. Only by flying forward and touching it with one's hand could its existence be discovered. This is the stealth form, which requires a certain amount of source power to activate. It can almost achieve the same level of concealment as the ancestor. Even if a Changsheng realm cultivator comes in person, they may not be able to detect anything. Layman Chaogong said with a proud expression. Next, layman Chaogong showed Li Fan the attack and transfer forms of the celestial mechanism fortress. It was indeed worthy of the name, celestial mechanism. Li Fan was very satisfied. The only pity is that source power is hard-earned. It requires hard work to extract it from every cultivator who practices the spirit origin art. It cannot achieve the ancestor's self-circulation, perpetual motion. When I fled for my life, I couldn't bring out the energy core components of the ancestor. Perhaps there will never be a chance to solve this mystery in the future. Layman Chaogong looked at the celestial mechanism fortress in front of him, seeming to have remembered his hometown again. His eyes were full of regret. There will be a chance. Li Fan said with a smile. Layman Chaogong didn't take Li Fan's words seriously. After finishing the explanation, Layman Chaogong very consciously handed over the highest authority of the celestial mechanism fortress to Li Fan at the same time. With a thought, information about how much source power was stored in the fortress, how long the various functions were expected to last, the specific situation around the celestial mechanism fortress, etc., all appeared in Li Fan's mind in an instant, giving Li Fan a different kind of illusion. He increased the output power of the fortress's source power, covering the entire spirit wood world with its protection range, and then activated the permanent stealth state. In this way, very little source power could be stored. It was almost a case of not being able to make ends meet. However, Li Fan was not worried. Instead, he asked his clone, Li Qing, to increase the intensity of cultivating the common people's spirit origin art in various small worlds. It was foreseeable that with the further promotion of the common people's spirit origin art, there would be a qualitative improvement not only in the harvest of source power, but even in the number of source power essences produced by the grateful red dust compassionate immortal. As this matter gradually got on track, Li Fan, with the attitude of making the best use of everything, did not let Layman Chaogong idle. He summoned Tian Yang to him and asked Layman Chaogong to examine him carefully. My junior brother, due to the limitations of his physical aptitude, was unable to break through to a higher realm. Therefore, he took a different approach, transforming himself into an object and lodging his soul in a puppet. After absorbing the power of thousand-year earth fire, he finally became a nascent soul. Although I later helped him devour the essence of heaven and earth and cross the threshold of the Tao integration stage, this may be his limit. Junior brother Tian Yang has been by my side for many years, loyal and devoted. I can't bear to see him stop here. Fellow Taoist Chaogong, please help me see if there is a way to help Tian Yang go further. Li Fan asked somewhat seriously. 1024. The Dharma is passed on and the treasure house is left. Ever since Tian Yang appeared before him, Layman Chaogong's gaze had not wavered. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Layman Chaogong sized him up and down, clicking his tongue in amazement. Amazing, amazing. To think that a person and an object could be so perfectly integrated. Back then, our Tianji realm's chief elder, Shengguan Tuo, once wanted to completely control open black lens bracket ancestor close black lens bracket, so he took a gamble and merged his own divine soul into the broken core of open black lens bracket ancestor close black lens bracket. The result, of course, was failure, and it almost led to the destruction of the Tianji realm. Since then, similar attempts have been absolutely forbidden. Although our Tianji realm's refining techniques are quite ingenious, a state as natural and perfect as this. Layman Chaogong's eyes were filled with joy, and he even gradually revealed a look of infatuation. Although Tian Yang was dull, he had long since escaped his muddled state. He warily sized up Layman Chaogong and quietly moved to Li Fan's side. Haha, this is the wonder of the myriad realms of cultivation. This method is called embodiment of the Tao, where one can transform into an object, merging the self with the object. Fellow Taoist Chaogong has been observing for so long, do you have any ideas for strengthening Tian Yang? Li Fan asked with a smile. Ideas. I have so many ideas. I'm simply, Layman Chaogong's face flushed red with excitement, as if he had discovered some novel toy. If fellow Taoist Tian Yang had appeared in our Tianji realm back then, it would have definitely caused a huge sensation. Perhaps it could have completely changed the history of the Tianji realm. The Tianji puppets we imitate are still quite far from their prototype open black lens bracket ancestor close black lens bracket. The most crucial point is that material resources are limited, and each time we need to completely create the finished product before comparing. Because there's no way to communicate with the puppets, but if we had fellow Taoist Tian Yang's help, perhaps many of open black lens bracket ancestor close black lens bracket S functions could be realized one by one. Of course, perhaps we'll need the assistance of fellow Taoists' Tao flower power. Layman Chaogong turned to look at Li Fan. Haha, fellow Taoist Chaogong, feel free to do so. Li Fan generously promised. Sensing Tian Yang's questioning of layman Chaogong's reliability, Li Fan secretly reassured him before finally dispelling Tian Yang's doubts. Watching layman Chaogong and Tian Yang disappear together, Li Fan flashed into the central underground secret room. Source power can affect and sublimate magical treasures. Li Fan summoned the terminus disintegration disc. After pondering for a moment, he did not choose the essence of source power generated by the faceless stone statue, nor did he use the source power gathered by the common people's spiritual origin technique. Instead, he only used the feedback cultivation he obtained from practicing the Sitting Immortal Sutra. A calamity body within his dantian shattered. A large amount of stored cultivation, under Li Fan's guidance, rushed towards the terminus disintegration disc. After careful observation, Li Fan discovered that the vast majority of the source power was not absorbed by it. Instead, it bounced back intact. If no cultivator collected it, it would eventually slowly dissipate into the world. But Li Fan also keenly noticed that a very small portion of the source power disappeared out of thin air during the process of contacting the terminus disintegration disc. Li Fan's eyes narrowed slightly as he generated a new calamity body and recollected the scattered source power. He continued to use source power to impact the terminus disintegration disc. Thus, like panning for gold in a great wave, slowly, the terminus disintegration disc eventually underwent a change. It was difficult to discern whether the change had really occurred just by observing its appearance. However, the increase in the disintegration disk's speed of deriving formations could not be faked. Some magical treasures, when used by cultivators for a long time, will slowly develop spirituality, becoming as easy to command as one's own limbs, and exerting even stronger effects. In fact, it's somewhat similar to this process. Li Fan seemed to have realized something as he sensed the increasingly deep and obvious connection between himself and the terminus disintegration disc. Unfortunately, every object has its own limit. Through the extraction of source power, the ability of the terminus disintegration disc was eventually increased by about 1/5. After that, the source power was useless to it. Better than nothing, I suppose. I just don't know if, after the disintegration disc has absorbed all 9 discs of this world and undergone a qualitative change, it can still be tempered using this method. Li Fan thought to himself. As if thinking of something would make it appear. 3 days later, Li Fan finally received a message from Mo Rubin. The meeting place was still that hidden grotto heaven, and the 9 disintegration discs had already been obtained. When Li Fan saw Mo Rubin again, he found that there seemed to be some kind of change in him. You seem a little different. Li Fan asked very straightforwardly. Mo Rubin smiled and did not hide it. Ha ha ha, as expected, I can't hide it from Brother Xingwang's discerning eyes. I've worked hard for the Myriad Immortals Alliance, resolving one trouble after another. My contributions can be said to be obvious to all, so the Council of Dharma Transmitters naturally bestowed a reward. Mo Rubin said with a hint of smugness on his face. Isn't the Myriad Immortals Alliance all of you Dharma Transmitters? You can take whatever you want. What's the need for a reward? Li Fan said half jokingly and half sarcastically. You can't say that. The Myriad Immortals Alliance is always the territory of Dharma Transmitter Celestial Venerable. We Dharma Transmitters, Mirror Holders, and Illusionary Sages are only managing it on behalf of Dharma Transmitter Celestial Venerable. Mo Rubin said with a righteous expression, putting on a good show. Then he laughed loudly. However, the items in this open black lens bracket Myriad Realms Treasury close black lens bracket are truly all extraordinary. This time, being able to gain such a great harvest is also an unexpected joy. Mo Rubin did not say exactly what he had obtained, but instead introduced the Myriad Realms Treasury. It turned out that the Myriad Realms Treasury contained all the treasures that Dharma Transmitter Celestial Venerable had scavenged from the corpses of those immortal cultivation realms that had merged with the Xuanwang realm. Within the Dark Star Sea, only the Xuanwang realm survived. The other immortal cultivation realms had either fallen into the immortal ruins or had been devoured by the Xuanwang realm. The treasures of all realms were gathered in this treasury. The name, Myriad Realms, was truly worthy of the name. Being favored by Dharma Transmitter Celestial Venerable and included in his collection naturally meant that it was of great value. Before Li Fan's eyes, there even appeared a scene of Dharma Transmitter Celestial Venerable diligently pulling the remnants of immortal cultivation realms in the starry sky, first collecting the treasures within, and then merging them into Xuanwang. It's just a pity that the Myriad Realms Treasury can only be opened with the joint decision of the Council of Dharma Transmitters, so I can't even line my own pockets. Otherwise, I could have let Brother Xingwang enjoy some of the benefits. Mo Rubin said with a smile. Li Fan responded with a cold face, however, these are just external objects. Like these 9 so-called disintegration disks, they are all tools. In the end, we still have to rely on ourselves. Upon hearing this, Mo Rubin's expression changed. Then he solemnly said, Brother Xingwang is right. My mentality has become a little too complacent. Li Fan snorted coldly and said nothing more. He only looked at the 9 disintegration disks that Mo Rubin casually handed over, which were faintly glowing with a crystal-clear white light. He forcibly suppressed the surging desire that suddenly emerged from the terminus disintegration disk in his sea of consciousness. 1025. The life is sealed and the Tao foundation is extracted. Feigning nonchalance, Li Fan put away the 9 disintegration disks. Li Fan then inquired about Mo Rubin's cooperation with Kang, the mirror keeper. This Kang is quite interesting. If you hadn't told me in advance, I really wouldn't have guessed that he had become a mirror slave of the Zhontian treasure mirror, Mo Rubin said, shaking his head slightly. But with his secret cooperation, the plan to persuade the Myriad Immortals Alliance to build a grand formation and completely control the Zhontian treasure mirror has been much smoother. However, the most crucial part depends on you, Brother Xingwang. The formation that can help Tian Zhan mirror break free from the shackles of the Dharma transmission Heavenly Lord. Are you really confident? Mo Rubin asked with a hint of doubt. Li Fan didn't immediately guarantee it. Instead, he pondered in silence for a while before slowly saying, it shouldn't be a big problem. This little thing you just gave me seems to be much stronger than the previous Wusheng Array crown. However, to be on the safe side, if possible, you'd better inquire more about the restrictions left by the Dharma transmission. Feeling that this was reasonable, Mo Rubin immediately agreed. By the way, I recently encountered something that you might be interested in. After exchanging some details that needed attention in the future execution of the plan, Mo Rubin suddenly said before leaving. Oh, Li Fan paused. Didn't you previously split out millions of intent demons, occupying the bodies of many cultivators and causing a great disturbance? Mo Rubin said excitedly. Ah, Li Fan, however, put on a confused look, as if he had completely forgotten about it. It was only after Mo Rubin's explanation that he nodded pretentiously, looking as if he somewhat remembered. The consciousness of these cultivators has been completely destroyed, leaving only their bodies alive. However, it also involves the operation of the floating starry sky array, so they cannot be directly executed. Therefore, all these people were imprisoned at that time. The original plan was to keep this group of cultivators alive forever in a state of physical existence and vanished consciousness. But after some discussion, we felt that 1 million was still too many. After all, many of them are cultivators above the nascent soul realm. As long as they live, they will occupy the resources of the cave heavens and the transformation of life, etc. This also means that the normal number of cultivators in the Xuanwang realm will always be less. So, after repeated consideration, we decided to keep only 500,000 and seal them away forever. As for the remaining 500,000, Mo Rubin paused slightly when he reached the key point. Killed them all? No, I didn't detect any tremors in the Xuanwang realm. Li Fan also cooperated and reacted appropriately. A hint of interest appeared in Mo Rubin's eyes. The Myriad Immortals Alliance has actually mastered a technology that can re-extract the cave heavens, the transformation of life, and even the essence of heaven and earth from the cultivators' bodies and return them to the world. Li Fan's eyes flashed with brilliance upon hearing this. How is it different from the natural return to heaven after a cultivator's death? Mo Rubin explained. When a cultivator dies and returns to heaven, it may take many years for them to be reborn in the world. Moreover, those cave heavens and the essence of heaven and earth will also undergo corresponding changes in the process of the world's operation. But the Myriad Immortals Alliance's open black lens bracket sealing fate close black lens bracket technique is different. At most, within half a day, the heaven and earth resources consumed by the cultivator will be extracted intact and returned to the Xuanwang heaven and earth. However, although it is said to be returning to heaven, it is actually different from natural evolution. The most crucial point is that the Myriad Immortals Alliance has prepared a new place to store these extracted heaven and earth resources. Mo Rubin's tone was somewhat amazed, obviously impressed by this ingenious idea. This place is located in the devouring Yuan white mist at the junction of the 4 central states of the Immortal Alliance, which is both close to and separated from the Xuanwang realm. It still belongs to the control of the Xuanwang realm's heavenly Tao, but after modification, the Myriad Immortals Alliance can obtain greater control authority. You mean, these extracted and stored heaven and earth resources can be reactivated at any time? Li Fan thought for a while, and then was slightly shocked. Because the meaning behind this was a bit terrifying. That's right. In other words, as long as the Myriad Immortals Alliance is willing, it can quickly use these resources to recreate a team of cultivators. But that's not the point. The Myriad Immortals Alliance has many other ways to do the same thing. The key is that the Myriad Immortals Alliance can continuously expand this realm. Then, slowly gather all the parts consumed by the cultivators of the world into it. The scene depicted by Mo Rubin was a bit chilling. Think about the consequences if this move is successfully implemented. At that time, I'm afraid even cultivating immortality will require the open black lens bracket permission close black lens bracket of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. The Myriad Immortals Alliance does not need ordinary cultivators to maintain the survival of the Xuanwang realm. It will probably convert a large number of cultivators into mortals. Tisk, tisk, tisk. The Myriad Immortals Alliance actually possesses such methods. Li Fan's face also darkened. Hee, brother, don't worry too much. Under the opinions of Dharma Transmitter Zhang and more than half of the Dharma transmitters, the use of this sealing fate method has been strictly restricted. After all, it is too dangerous. If it is not controlled well, I am afraid it will cause a future of monopolizing cultivation. Mo Rubin quickly comforted. In my opinion, Dharma Transmitter Zhang is still good. He is truly considering for the cultivators of the world. As for the other Dharma transmitters who hold opposing opinions, I think it is mostly because they are concerned about the power of the Five Elders Association. After all, if there are really too few cultivators, if a full-scale war breaks out with the Five Elders Association, I am afraid that only the combat power provided by open black lens bracket illusory true sage close black lens bracket will not be their opponent. Mo Rubin analyzed. As for the one who researched the open black lens bracket sealing fate close black lens bracket method, Dharma Transmitter Zhang is very dissatisfied with the decisions of the Dharma Transmitter Council. This kid has been in power for too long and already believes that there is no need for cultivators in the world at all. It would be better if they were all transformed into pig-like mortals. He. But relying on the power of the Dharma transmission. Dharma Transmitter Zhang, if I meet him, a strange light flashed in Li Fan's eyes. Brother Xingwang, don't be careless. This Dharma Transmitter Zhang still has some real talent and learning. After all, he can research such evil techniques as sealing fate. Mo Rubin reminded solemnly, you didn't see the tragic situation when those cultivators were sealed. Mo Rubin sighed. Even with my experience, I can't bear to look directly at it. This is when they are already in a state of ignorance and unconsciousness. If the cultivator's divine consciousness still exists, and open black lens bracket sealing fate close black lens bracket is still executed, I am afraid it will surpass all the tortures of the past and present. Mo Rubin sighed and concluded. 1026. The Tenfold Dissociation Disc. I can imagine. After all, when cultivators practice the new method, the resources of heaven and earth are completely integrated with themselves, inseparable from each other. To be re-extracted would be almost the same as being crushed and separated, Li Fan said coldly. This method transmitter, Zhang, is truly a rare talent. If I have the opportunity, I would really like to meet him properly, Li Fan sneered. Mo Rubin shook his head. Because his suggestion was rejected, Zhang, in a fit of anger, returned to his own small world. And he won't see anyone. There probably won't be any opportunities in the short term. Perhaps before we leave in the future, we can make one last plan. Li Fan nodded in agreement. After talking about this interesting matter, Li Fan returned to the spirit wood realm with 9 disintegration discs. In the underground secret room, Li Fan carefully set up another layer of protective formations around him. Only then did he take out the 9 newly born disintegration discs and place them in front of him. No longer suppressing the desire from his sea of consciousness to devour them in one gulp, the terminus disintegration disc flew out directly, like a beast starved for a long time, its eyes glowing red, staring intently at the self of this world. If Li Fan hadn't controlled it, the terminus disintegration disc would have long been unable to restrain its instinct and quickly devoured the 9 discs. But Li Fan still maintained a clear mind. Should he let the terminus disintegration disc devour the 9 discs, piece by piece, that have not yet been fused, or should he wait until the 9 discs are unified and form a complete disintegration disc before devouring it? The answer was obvious. With great perseverance, Li Fan restrained the terminus disintegration disc. Then he began to manipulate and promote the fusion of the 9 discs. The fusion of the 9 disks, in the final analysis, is the survival of the fittest. For Li Fan, who had personally experienced the fusion of the 9 disks and now possessed formation knowledge far surpassing this era, it was just a piece of cake. He casually chose one of the 9 disks as the lucky one and held it in his palm. Then, with a gentle flick of his finger, the terminus disintegration disk floating in the air shone a white light. The information constantly changing in the white light represented countless formations that the disintegration disk had not yet recorded at this point in time. Formations that originally required the disintegration disk to spend a lot of time learning and constantly deducing to understand. At this moment, they were all rudely stuffed into this newly born disintegration disk by Li Fan. This was the so-called forced growth. As the number of formations absorbed by the new disintegration disk increased, its surface luster became visibly brighter. The remaining 8 disintegration disks seemed to sense the danger. They were forced to operate their deduction speed to the limit. But how could they compare to the lucky one who was reaping the benefits? In less than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, the first disintegration disk was eliminated. After devouring its companion, the lucky one became even more powerful. The speed of accepting the infusion also accelerated. The pace of devouring other new disintegration disks also continued to accelerate. Finally, after half a day, the final winner emerged. The complete disintegration disk of this world appeared in the world. Li Fan did not rush to devour it immediately, but like a patient gourmand, he refined this new complete body with source power in the same way. When everything was ready, he finally no longer suppressed the terminus disintegration disk. Thus, the lucky one, who had finally won in the life and death struggle between brothers, fell into the mouth of the black hand behind the scenes in an instant. Li Fan seemed to hear a faint chewing sound. He also seemed to hear the unwilling and angry wail of the new disintegration disk. But the fusion of the two was already destined. Like returning to simplicity and washing away the lead, the originally somewhat shining terminus disintegration disk gradually converged its light as it continuously absorbed the new body. It became like a stone-milled object that had existed for a long time. Inconspicuous. Although the process of deducing formations was interrupted due to the fusion, as the owner of the terminus disintegration disk, Li Fan also clearly felt the unimaginable transformation taking place on it. The so-called earth-shaking changes in the blink of an eye. At the same time as the terminus disintegration disk was sublimated, a strange wave also descended. Extremely similar to the scene when the spirit wood realm was sublimated, the entire world was shaking slightly. The creatures living in the spirit wood realm all felt something in their hearts, knowing that something extraordinary was happening. But under Li Fan's deliberate concealment, they could not lock down the source of the anomaly. The change continued. On the surface of the stone disk, mysterious patterns were spontaneously generated. Before Li Fan could see them clearly, they disappeared into the interior and disappeared from view. With the blessing of these natural patterns, the aura faintly revealed on the terminus disintegration disk became even more extraordinary. Above the sky of the spirit wood realm, a hole even cracked open for no reason. As if something was descending from outside the hole. Li Fan looked up, expectant. However, what surprised him was the hole lasted for a while, but he never waited for the desired change. And the terminus disintegration disk seemed to be hovering outside the highest point, only a step away from reaching the top. But invisibly, it seemed as if something was hindering it. It was as if there was an invisible barrier in front of it. The aura of the terminus disintegration disk rose incessantly, but it ultimately failed to complete its ultimate transformation. Prosperity turns to decline. The hole in the center of the spirit wood realm's sky gradually decreased over time. Finally disappeared, and all the anomalies that occurred on the terminus disintegration disk also completely subsided. Li Fan held the new terminus disintegration disk in his hand, thoughtfully. Something is missing. It seems that the severance of the immortal path also has an impact on pure instruments. He appeased the unwillingness that was constantly coming from the terminus disintegration disk, and when it finally accepted this helpless reality, Li Fan began to try to operate this sublimated disintegration disk. Although it did not complete the transformation to the level of an immortal artifact, the efficiency of deducing formations was no longer the same as before. The most significant thing was that not only was the speed of analyzing the open black lens bracket myriad spirits return to numbers close black lens bracket formation several times faster, but also, it was carrying out self-deduction at the same time as analyzing. Moreover, it still had the energy to carry out the previous task of deciphering the Heavenly Venerable's restrictions. Even more terrifying was that Li Fan was also very keenly aware that this was not the state of the new terminus disintegration disk operating at full power. It still had energy to spare. Li Fan estimated that after devouring another self, the overall deduction efficiency of the terminus disintegration disk had expanded by nearly 10 times. This, without being promoted to the immortal artifact level, Li Fan believed that the current terminus disintegration disk had definitely stood at the pinnacle of mortal objects. Even in terms of pure formation deduction ability, it was likely no weaker than some immortal artifacts. The effect was so good that it greatly exceeded Li Fan's expectations. Did the fusion of the self bring about an effect far greater than 1 + 1 = 2? Li Fan immediately fell into deep thought. 1027. Already stepped on the top of the mortal world. Li Fan had also experienced the fusion of completely identical objects. For example, the transformation stone, the stagnation remnant tablet, and so on. But it was clear that the effects after their fusion were far inferior to the disintegration disk. Perhaps it's because the disintegration disk already stands at the pinnacle of the mortal realm's array formations. Although it didn't ascend after devouring another version of itself, it achieved some kind of qualitative change. There are many existences in the world like the disintegration disk, just one step away from ascension. But because the immortal path is severed, they are almost destined to be forever stuck. After all, large-scale operations like the heavenly mystery mirror of the 115th generation, which mobilized all the cultivators of the Immortal Alliance to explore thousands of small worlds to achieve its own ascension, are not something everyone can do. But with the help of Still True, the union of two that I achieved can easily help them cross this natural barrier. This is perhaps the simplest way in the world today to mass-produce near-immortal power. Numerous items instantly flashed through Li Fan's mind, as well as their possible manifestations after fusing with themselves. The law derivation jade, the wooden sword, and even the creation stone slab, and so on. As for whether items that have been fused once can continue to be strengthened through another self-fusion, further verification is needed. However, Li Fan guessed that it probably wouldn't work. The key lies in the severance of the immortal path and the lack of immortal spiritual qi. Without its foundation, quantity is useless. Slowly gathering his thoughts, Li Fan came out of the closed-door chamber and first made rectifications to the protective array of the spirit wood realm. The time spent on this improvement was even longer than the time Li Fan spent building the array in the first place. It was almost equivalent to rebuilding it. But the whole process was carried out silently, without alarming any living beings in the spirit wood realm. Only after the array was completed, the slight change in the aura enveloping the spirit wood realm made the 100 Flowers Taoist and other beings that are above the harmony stage aware of it. Li Fan stood in the sky, his eyes tightly closed. Even without relying on his divine sense or observing with his eyes, the miniature scene of the entire spirit wood realm appeared in Li Fan's mind in every detail, purely through the induction of the realm protection array. Even every living being in the spirit wood realm could not escape. With the power of this new realm protection array, Li Fan could instantly obliterate the living beings in the array without having to take action himself. The difference between immortals and mortals is truly like a chasm. I see the living beings in the spirit wood realm as ants, and immortals probably see me the same way. If I didn't have Still True, that is. Li Fan sighed slightly. Theoretically speaking, the newly deployed spirit wood realm protection array is far from its limit. But due to the special materials that only exist in the immortal realm and the lack of immortal spiritual qi, the current state of the array actually has little room for further improvement. After initially completing the disintegration disk's power test, Li Fan continued to return to the secret chamber to summarize and compile the disintegration disk's analysis of the myriad spirits returned to numbers. At the same time, he supervised the analysis of the heavenly Venerable of Dharma transmission's restrictions. Although the final disintegration disk has formidable computing power and is already at the top level of the mortal realm. After all, it is an inanimate object and cannot do without Li Fan's guidance. It might just self-deduce in some strange direction. The Tao of arrays is boundless, and Li Fan was immersed in it, unaware of the passage of time. One day, Li Fan suddenly felt something and woke up from his research in surprise. Anchored for 15 years, the Medicine King Cauldron returns. Calculating the time, it was about right. Li Fan's eyes flickered, he stopped his work, and his figure instantly left the spirit wood realm. He came to the Kangwu Abyss, the designated landing point of the Medicine King Cauldron, and waited patiently. Li Fan looked towards the bottom of the abyss, his expression somewhat solemn. With his current strength, he naturally had the strength to go down. But whenever this idea came up, a sense of unease would arise in his heart. Then it was suppressed by Li Fan. Noticing the distracting thoughts dissolved by the Xuanwang Immortal Heart mantra, Li Fan's eyes were deep. The inexplicable attraction is indeed not an illusion. If I'm not mistaken, the Kangwu Abyss is also like the Kongyan Sea, a relatively large remnant of other cultivation worlds. Well, perhaps it's more than that. The bottom of the abyss may also be related to the depths of the white mist. Li Fan looked around at the floating ruins and buildings, and slowly thought. In ancient times, there was no Kangwu Abyss. The Kongyan Sea was created by a palm strike, and the Kangwu Abyss was created by a foot stomp. Obviously, this was Dharma transmission assisting in the process of the Xuanwang realm merging and devouring other cultivation worlds. The Xuanwang realm itself could not digest it on its own, and needed the help of Dharma transmission. This in itself can explain some problems. Although the Kangwu Abyss must also hide many secrets like the Kongyan Sea. But Li Fan did not intend to trace the source at this moment. He just waited patiently for the return of the Medicine King Cauldron. Consistent with the time point in his memory, a fiery meteor illuminated the sky at night. Then it disappeared into the night and went straight to the Kangwu Abyss. When it came to the location where Li Fan was, the Medicine King Cauldron stagnated in the air and hid its own existence. However, Li Fan's expression was a little subtle when he looked at the landing point of the Medicine King Cauldron. After repeatedly comparing it with the picture in his memory, Li Fan confirmed that the final landing position of the Medicine King Cauldron in this life had a slight deviation. The deviation was only 3 inches. If Li Fan's divine sense was not extremely sharp and the transformation stone had not recorded everything in detail, he would almost have ignored it. Was it affected by unknown external forces during the return process? Or has the position and size of the Xuanwang realm itself changed? A sense of unease arose in Li Fan's heart for no reason. He instantly reviewed all the events that had occurred in this life in his mind, and Li Fan screened out the objects that might have caused this deviation. After locking onto several targets, he could not yet confirm them. He just kept them firmly in his mind, and then Li Fan controlled a small Medicine King Cauldron and entered the Medicine King True Cauldron. To obtain control of the Medicine King Cauldron, you must enter the control room. Li Fan had already prepared for this. With a slight thought in his mind, a strand of everlasting azure force was separated from his body and poured into the gate of life and death outside the control room. Before the Medicine King Cauldron returned, Li Fan had already practiced the Sutra of Salvation and Longevity. Although it had been transformed at this moment, he had stored some everlasting azure force in the cave heaven for future use. Only the true disciples of the Medicine King sect can practice the Sutra of Salvation and Longevity. After passing the verification, Li Fan successfully entered the control room. It seemed like a void. Apart from a faint figure, there was nothing else. That phantom should be Lu Rushan, the deceased sect master of the Medicine King sect. At this moment, his face could no longer be seen clearly, but after he cast his gaze on Li Fan and confirmed his identity as a true disciple of the Medicine King sect, scenes began to float in the void. It was the process of the Medicine King sect almost being captured by the immortal ruins after flying out of the Xuanwang realm. Then Lu Rushan sacrificed himself and the lives of several elders to barely save the Medicine King Cauldron. 1028. The body will not die for 1,000 years. Even though he already knew the cause and effect of the matter, Li Fan, watching it again, still felt a bit of trepidation in the face of the power of the immortal ruins. After the image finished playing, the illusory figure of Lu Rushan began to deliver his last will and testament. His adopted son, Lu Yihang, would take over as the sect master of the Medicine King sect. It would be best if the other elders were willing to support and help him. If they were unwilling, they could leave the Medicine King sect on their own, he would not force them. After returning to the Xuanwang world, they should not rush to seek revenge, but should lie dormant in the Longevity Valley and wait for the opportunity, and so on. It was the same as he had known before. However, after temporarily gaining control of the Medicine King True Cauldron, Li Fan did not rush to leave. Instead, he continued to wait in the control room. Even after Lu Rushan's illusory figure completely dissipated, he did not leave. He patiently waited for half a day, but still, nothing seemed to happen. Li Fan pondered for a moment, and the final decomposition disc quickly operated, generating a formation. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and Li Fan instantly set up a formation in the control room. The main function of the formation was to make all hidden remnants of souls have nowhere to hide. That's right, Li Fan suspected that Lu Rushan of the Medicine King sect had not completely died. This was not a baseless guess. It should be known that the current Li Fan can be said to have seen a lot. Mechanisms, formations, restrictions, what kinds of existences had he not seen? However, the illusory figure that issued the will in front of him did not belong to any of these categories. Being able to maintain the image and say such a long string of words naturally required some kind of power to support it. Since the above external options were all excluded, then the only remaining possibility was Lu Rushan's own divine soul power. As soon as the formation was completed, with beams of light crisscrossing and constantly sweeping through the space, as Li Fan had expected, an increasingly blurred figure was forced to reappear. It couldn't even communicate with divine sense, as if it would dissipate at any moment. Feeling the faint helplessness and despair coming from the other party, Li Fan snorted coldly. He reached out and grabbed Lu Rushan in his hand. Without the slightest hesitation, the source power containing the influence of the faceless true immortal was slowly poured into him by Li Fan. While Lu Rushan's divine soul gradually became clearer, he himself also appeared in Li Fan's sensory network. Sect Master Lu's trick of shedding the golden cicada's shell is quite good, almost deceiving even this deity, Li Fan said indifferently. Fellow Taoist is joking, Lu Rushan said with a bitter expression. May I know which sect fellow Taoist comes from? He tentatively asked. Xuantian sect, Li Fan said with a wicked smile. Lu Rushan's divine soul trembled, already not very solid. Hearing Li Fan's words at this moment, it was even more likely to collapse at any time. With great difficulty, he stabilized his mind, and Lu Rushan said with lingering fear, "It's best not to joke about this." Before he could finish speaking, the blood moon phantom behind Li Fan instantly appeared. A pressure far exceeding that of an ancient Tao integration cultivator was revealed. The aura alone almost completely shattered Lu Rushan's current weak divine soul. You think I'm lying? Your Medicine King sect didn't escape for even half a day, but thousands of years have passed in the Xuanwang world. Li Fan sneered. Only then did Lu Rushan wake up from his dream. What? Thousands of years? He calculated with his fingers and confirmed that Li Fan was not lying. His already illusory face became even paler. I knew it would affect time and space, but I didn't expect it to be to such an extent. Although very shocked, Lu Rushan was, after all, the master of a sect, and he quickly calmed down. In that case, has the Xuantian sect successfully restored itself and regained power? Lu Rushan asked cautiously. He. Li Fan smiled noncommittally, and then with a slight finger, he transmitted the general situation of the Xuanwang world today. After learning about the changes of the past millennium, Lu Rushan was speechless for a long time. HMPH, I occasionally learned about the anecdotes of your Medicine King sect leaving in ancient times. Not long ago, I saw a meteor streaking across the sky, and on a whim, I calculated the cause and effect of the matter. According to the rules of our Xuantian sect, traitors like you who are stupid and incompetent should generally be executed. A trace of killing intent flashed in Li Fan's eyes. However, he then changed the subject. But, times are different now. If we want to overthrow the myriad Immortal Alliance and re-establish the Xuantian sect, we need to gather all the forces that can be combined. So, I'll give your Medicine King sect a chance. Li Fan looked at Lu Rushan, his eyes flashing fiercely. Where did Lu Rushan have other choices? Not only his own life, but also the lives of the disciples sleeping in the Medicine King cauldron were all in the other party's hands. Lu Rushan had no choice but to agree. HMPH, actually, your opinion is not important. Since you have already worshipped the red dust compassionate true immortal, you can't escape even if you want to, Li Fan said with a smile. Lu Rushan recalled the faceless stone statue that had suddenly appeared in his divine soul, and couldn't help but feel a tremor in his heart. Temporarily taking Lu Rushan and the Medicine King cauldron into his cave heaven, Li Fan returned to the spirit wood world and summoned Hermit Chaogong. Hermit Chaogong was studying Tianyang with great interest, and was a little unhappy to be disturbed by Li Fan at this moment. This friend of mine lost his body due to some accident. Can you forge a puppet for him to settle in? Li Fan asked directly. With Lu Rushan's current divine soul strength, it was difficult to even barely maintain his form. Let alone recultivating, it would be a bit troublesome to help him replenish his divine soul. It would be better to let Chaogong contribute. Hermit Chaogong glanced at Lu Rushan and nodded, no problem. But it's just an ordinary heavenly mechanism puppet. He was a Dao integration cultivator before, right? I'm afraid the puppet body can't fully exert his original strength. As long as he can move, Li Fan didn't care. Resurrecting Lu Rushan was just to better control the Medicine King sect. He no longer had any real temptation fruits on hand. If he were to coerce and lure the people of the Medicine King sect to submit one by one, there would be some risks. After all, this had happened in his previous life. As long as Lu Rushan was there, he wouldn't have to worry about the Medicine King sect getting out of control. Chao Gong muttered to himself and asked Li Fan for some materials. Having lived in the Xuanwang world for some years, the materials Chao Gong wanted were all produced locally in the Xuanwang world. Li Fan quickly prepared them. Can you provide some source power essence? Just before preparing to forge the puppet, Chao Gong suddenly made a request. As if afraid of Li Fan misunderstanding, he took the initiative to explain, I haven't used source power essence before, so I want to try it out, right? Otherwise, I'll just use it directly on Tianyang, little brother, and I'm not confident. Li Fan was silent for a moment, and finally agreed to Chao Gong's request. Chao Gong immediately became excited. He seemed to have overturned the previous forging plan and asked Li Fan for some more materials. Only then did he begin to forge the heavenly mechanism puppet. And the forging process was also quite novel. He didn't use any tangible flames, but directly used the golden source power in the void to wash out a phantom. 1029. The various realms outside Xuanwang. One by one, natural treasures were used as the puppet's frame, and golden source power surged like a tide, forming flesh and blood tissues and adhering to the skeleton. The celestial mechanism puppet slowly took shape. And in the process of the golden source power emerging, Li Fan also faintly heard intermittent murmurs. What's that noise? Seeing that craftsman Zhu Shi seemed to be handling everything with ease, Li Fan wasn't afraid of disturbing him and directly asked. I'm not sure, but it's a phenomenon that inevitably occurs when using source power, so there's no need to worry. We cultivators of the celestial mechanism realm call it whispers of the world. You'll get used to it after seeing it a lot. While answering Li Fan, he stared intently at the celestial mechanism puppet, meticulously manipulating the source power. Limbs, torso, head, and then skin, hair, all slowly manifested. Sovereign Lu Ruchun of the Medicine King sect watched the scene before him with a face full of shock. Such methods of refining puppets completely exceeded his imagination. The moment the celestial puppet, with an appearance completely identical to Lu Ruchun, was created, Lu Ruchun inexplicably felt an eagerness to possess it. This fellow Taoist, please, craftsman Zhu Shi said lazily. He glanced at Li Fan and, seeing him nod, Lu Ruchun carefully flew closer. The celestial mechanism puppet burst out with a burst of faint light, and after a moment, opened its eyes. Lu Ruchun, reborn, opened and closed his palms, his expression shocked. It's simply, exactly the same as my original body. There's even the existence of a Dantian in a sea of consciousness. How was this done? Craftsman Zhu Shi completely ignored Lu Ruchun. Alright. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Fellow Taoist Tianyang is still waiting for me. He asked impatiently. Li Fan smiled and let him leave. Sovereign Lu, what do you think of the methods of our Myriad Worlds Union? Li Fan asked, looking at Lu Ruchun, who was still experiencing his new body. Miraculous, truly miraculous, Lu Ruchun said sincerely. Then, his expression shifted slightly. Myriad Worlds Union, could it be that the craftsman Taoist from just now is not a native cultivator of the Xuanwang realm? Li Fan nodded. Sovereign Lu, your knowledge is indeed extraordinary. Craftsman Taoist is from the celestial mechanism realm. Upon hearing this, Lu Ruchun exclaimed, the celestial mechanism realm. That immortal cultivation world that, according to rumors, is built on a giant puppet and drifts erratically in the starry sky. So that's how it is, that explains it. After some questioning from Li Fan, he learned that the Medicine King sect's ancestor, Medicine King Sun Piao Miao, had traveled through various realms in his early years and recorded his experiences in each realm. Among them was a record about the celestial mechanism realm. However, after the immortal path was severed, there was basically no more contact between the various immortal cultivation realms. So the records about the various realms are all still from the distant past. When I decided to lead the entire sect to flee far away and escape Xuanwang, the target I was heading to was the closest carefree realm. The cultivators there respect inaction and the Tao of carefreeness, and they dislike conflict. They are also very friendly to outsiders. It's a good place. It's just a pity. Lu Ruchun's face was somewhat and ran. While speaking, he very sensibly transmitted Sun Piaomiao's travelogue to Li Fan with his divine sense. A simple star map instantly appeared in Li Fan's mind. It marked the location of the Dao beacons of a total of 18 immortal cultivation realms around the Xuanwang realm. They seemed to be arranged randomly, and there was no special pattern to be seen. In addition to the 18 fixed ones, there were also 2 immortal cultivation realms without specific Dao beacon locations. One of them was the Celestial Mechanism realm, and the other was named Mystic Merchant. According to the travelogue, Mystic Merchant was more like a giant flying ship than a world. Mystic Merchant traveled between various immortal cultivation realms, exchanging resources and seeking profit. Piaomiao ancestor was truly enviable for being able to travel through the various realms, Li Fan said with emotion, after scanning the contents of the travelogue several times. The era was too long ago, and the Starry Sea had undergone great changes. Everything recorded in the travelogue was probably all turned into nothingness. Or perhaps, it had already been swallowed by Xuanwang. Mystic Merchant, the style of the cultivators of this realm seems somewhat similar to Zhao Shuyuan. If there is a chance in the future, I can verify it. Lu Ruchun didn't know what Li Fan was thinking and continued. It is said that the ancestor was also preparing to travel to more distant places, but he didn't know why he eventually changed his mind. It seemed to be because the starry sky we are in has some special reason. However, the specific reason was not told to future generations by the ancestor. Li Fan's expression changed slightly. Some special reason. The era in which Sun Piaomiao lived was before the immortal path was severed. The high wall naturally did not yet exist. But the starry sea where the Xuanwang realm was located was already different. The ascended immortals of all generations in the Xuanwang realm cannot find any relevant records. Either every senior has been promoted to become a nameless true immortal, or a great power has erased all their information. Interesting. Li Fan fell into contemplation. Next, Li Fan led Lu Ruchun on a tour of the Spirit Wood realm's grand scenery. Whether it was the mountains and rivers taken from the Xuanwang realm or the replicas of the ancient sects, ruins, or the towering tree in the center, Lu Ruchun praised them all. Finally, after solemnly paying respects to the faceless true immortal stone statue, Li Fan took out the Medicine King cauldron. Now there is a restriction that laws cannot be cultivated together. If all the disciples in the cauldron are awakened, they will inevitably fall into infighting. Sovereign Lu, what do you think we should do? Our Myriad Worlds Union has a technique called Sentient Being Spirit Origin Art. It can eliminate this restriction. After listening to Li Fan's introduction, Lu Ruchun pondered for a moment and gave his reply. Since I have already decided to join the Union, I naturally have to contribute. In terms of combat power, our Medicine King sect may not be very good. But when it comes to alchemy and cultivating spirit plants, our Medicine King sect is quite good at it. However, a hint of hesitation appeared on Lu Ruchun's face. Thousands of years have passed, and I don't know what level the Xuanwang realm's Tao of alchemy has developed to now. But if we can get some specific pills and give us some time, we should be able to barely catch up. Lu Ruchun understood very well that the best way to ensure the safety of the entire Medicine King sect was to show their value as much as possible. After all, after seeing the treefolk race working hard day and night in the spirit wood realm and the flesh puppets that had completely turned into cultivation machines, Lu Ruchun knew that this Myriad Worlds Union was by no means a kind bunch. And this envoy, representing the red dust compassionate immortal, the former Dharma king of the Xuantian sect. He was definitely not as kind and benevolent as he looked. The Sutra of Salvation and Longevity has special benefits for alchemy. Therefore, it is best for some of the sect's elders to choose to retain their original cultivation base. 1030. The truth outside the dream is the same. As for those other disciples with mediocre talents. A trace of reluctance flashed in Lu Ruchun's eyes, but he ultimately said in a deep voice, then let their cultivation be abolished, and they shall switch to cultivating the common people's spiritual origin art. Li Fan clapped his hands in satisfaction upon hearing this. Sect leader Lu's awareness is indeed high. This saves me a lot of trouble. Lu Ruchun gave a wry smile of embarrassment. After submitting the list of all the cultivators inside the cauldron, Li Fan decided to awaken the integration elders first. After all, those below integration, especially the ancient cultivators, were not of much use. Within the Medicine King cauldron, there were a total of 6 integration cultivators and 23 transformation god cultivators in slumber. Among them, Lu San, Fang Ziji, and Zhang Yushan were 3 that Li Fan was already very familiar with. Naturally, he would choose to awaken them first in this world. Perhaps we can borrow the power of pills to resist that invisible killing intent, Lu Rushan suddenly said before dispelling the great dream of spring and autumn formation. However, I haven't personally experienced it after all, and I don't have absolute certainty, Lu Rushan spoke with great caution. It doesn't matter, it's best if it's useful. Lu Rushan took out several pills radiating a cold blue light from the Medicine King cauldron and fed them to Lu San first. After a moment, Lu San slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the unfamiliar Li Fan. Lu San's vigilance was still very high, and his figure flickered away. However, when he saw Lu Rushan, the wariness in his heart completely disappeared. Master, has it already arrived in the carefree realm? A look of joy appeared on Lu San's face, and he asked subconsciously. Lu Rushan sighed, shook his head, and briefly recounted the ins and outs of the matter. Lu San was naturally inevitably shocked, but with Lu Rushan as his backbone, he quickly calmed down. Next, Zhang Yushan was awakened. Zhang Yushan's performance was much calmer in comparison. She quickly adapted to the new situation after 1,000 years. It's fine as long as sect leader Lu makes the decisions, Zhang Yushan said faintly in her metallic, grating voice. You too, circulate the world-saving longevity scripture, Lu Rushan instructed, looking at the two cultivators before him. Lu San and Zhang Yushan immediately did as they were told. After a moment, the two frowned in unison. How do you feel? There is indeed a restless killing intent that emerges from time to time. But it can still be suppressed. Perhaps it's the effect of that open black lens bracket non-awareness pill close black lens bracket, Lu San replied after experiencing it for a moment. Zhang Yushan then said, the non-awareness pill is wasted on me, it's not worth mentioning compared to what I encountered in the immovable prison. Only then did Lu Rushan look at Li Fan. It seems it does have the effect of suppressing killing intent. However, the materials required to refine the non-awareness pill are relatively precious, and the inventory in the Medicine King cauldron is probably only enough to refine a few furnaces. Li Fan waved his hand. Don't worry about the problem of raw materials, the Myriad Worlds Union is relatively wealthy in this regard. Continue, and see how many people it can maintain at most. Lu Rushan nodded. Next, he successively awakened Zheng Qinren and Okui, two integration cultivators. At this time, they were already struggling to suppress the killing intent in their hearts. It seems the limit is here. Let's just leave it at that for now. As for the remaining Fan Zhou, there is also an Elder Fang. His situation is special, and he hasn't cultivated the world-saving longevity scripture. It won't hurt to awaken him. Before Li Fan could finish speaking, Zhang Yushan reminded him. Lu San glanced at Zhang Yushan slightly. Li Fan smiled and finally released Fang Ziji from the great dream of spring and autumn formation. At this point, the top combat power of the Medicine King sect was basically gathered. Including Lu Rushan himself, there were 6 integration cultivators. Even if they were ancient cultivators, they were still a considerable force for the current Myriad Worlds Union. In addition, they were all specialized in alchemy, so their role might be even greater than ordinary integration cultivators. Under Lu Rushan's leadership, the Medicine King sect members briefly familiarized themselves with the basic situation of the Spirit Wood realm. They were all preoccupied, except for Fang Ziji. When Fang Ziji heard that there were actually Heavenly Mystery Realm cultivators in the Spirit Wood realm, and that Lu Rushan's body was still a puppet refined by the other party, he was immediately excited. He kept clamoring to see craftsman Zhu Shi. Craftsman, who was immersed in studying Tianyang, was originally somewhat unwelcoming to this inexplicable guest. However, after the two briefly exchanged ideas, they immediately got along very happily. Although Fang Ziji's refining level was far inferior to craftsman's, he had traveled all over Xuanwang when he was young and had extraordinary knowledge. He could also help with the research on Tianyang's transformation into Dao. The two excitedly closed the door, not allowing outsiders to disturb them. Li Fan simply let them go. After discussions among the integration cultivators of the Medicine King sect, they finally gave Li Fan a list containing 30 names. These disciples are all absolutely promising talents. If they were to switch to cultivating the common people's spiritual origin art, it would be a pity. We can let them remain asleep for now, and wait until we find a way to suppress the killing intent in the future. As for the other disciples, Lu Rushan said resolutely, let the envoy handle them. Although it was cold-blooded and ruthless, it would at least save their lives. As for gathering the power of their integration cultivators to launch a counterattack, After seeing the many scenes of the spirit wood realm, they decisively suppressed this idea deeply in their minds, not daring to reveal it in the slightest. Actually, I have another method. It's not necessary to make all these disciples become worthless machines for circulating cultivation techniques. Looking at the Medicine King sect members, Li Fan suddenly said. Aren't they sleeping in the great dream of spring and autumn formation? If I improve the formation, so that the situation in the dream is consistent with reality, they don't necessarily have to wake up, and they can also complete the work that needs to be completed in reality. Lu Rushan was somewhat uncertain when he heard this. What does the envoy mean? Sleepwalking. Li Fan nodded. Wait a moment. The terminus dissolution disk in the sea of consciousness operated, and the improved great dream of spring and autumn formation instantly emerged. After teaching the formation to Lu Rushan, the other party's eyes were filled with astonishment. Because this formation seemed to have been deduced just by talking. It should be feasible. Lu Rushan took a deep breath and said slowly. Soon after, when the new great dream of spring and autumn formation replaced the old one, Li Fan and his group appeared in the dreams of all the Medicine King sect disciples. The original scenes in the dream had all disappeared, replaced by scenes that were exactly the same as the spirit wood realm in reality. Lu Rushan did not tell the disciples that they were still in a dream. He simply recounted the story of failing to escape the Xuanwang realm and now joining the Myriad Worlds Union. Although the disciples were panic-stricken, they had at least saved their lives. After a period of commotion, they returned to normal. According to Lu Rushan's instructions, they settled down in the spirit wood realm. At the same time, in reality, their bodies also presented synchronized movements. 1031. Pull out the Tianshuan mirror again. To prevent any inconsistencies between the dream realm and reality, Li Fan had even specifically sectioned off a piece of land in the spirit wood world to serve as a habitat for these disciples of the Medicine King sect. Protected by formations, it ensured that no accidents would disturb them. After all, there are still some differences between dreams and reality. So they can't handle overly precise tasks. But if it's just manual labor, like providing evergreen force, it shouldn't be a problem, Lu Rushan commented after observing them for a while. Refining any elixir, as long as an appropriate amount of evergreen force is added, will increase the probability of success and the quality. Therefore, the more evergreen force, the better. Looking at the Medicine King sect disciples in the dream, who had survived a catastrophe and whose faces were full of longing for the future, a trace of pity flashed in Lu San's eyes. But he also knew that this was the best treatment he could secure for them at the moment, so he merely echoed Lu Rushan's words. And Li Fan, who understood people's hearts, clearly sensed the inner thoughts of the combined Tao experts of the Medicine King sect present. The so-called empathy was only human nature. Li Fan didn't push them too hard, but instead assured them, it's just an expedient measure. Don't worry, everyone, I certainly won't let these disciples wallow in dreams for too long. The crowd didn't know whether to believe him or not, but they all praised Li Fan's benevolence. In ancient immortal cultivation sects, elders almost always climbed up from the very bottom, with rich experience in struggle. Li Fan replied with a smile, but he was not fooled by the appearances these people displayed. But it's not a big problem. They've all worshipped the faceless true immortal statue, so they're all grasshoppers on the same rope. The problem of the elders and the lower-level disciples had been resolved. Next, he needed to arrange for the 30 elite disciples on the list. Including Lu Rushan's adopted son, Lu Yihang, all 30 of them were the best of the younger generation of the Medicine King sect. Even with Li Fan's current vision, they could be called naturally gifted. It was a time when he needed people, so it would be a pity if they remained asleep. So Li Fan contacted Mo Rubin again and asked him for 100 different cultivation methods. Although cultivation methods were one of the most precious resources in the Xuanwang world, the law transmitters, who stood at the pinnacle of rule, naturally did not lack them. Li Fan roughly recounted to Mo Rubin the process of finding the Medicine King cauldron. Although Mo Rubin was a little surprised by Li Fan's good luck, he didn't particularly care. After handing over 100 nascent soul-level cultivation methods to Li Fan, he instructed, it's fine to play around, but don't delay the main business. I have already obtained the support of the vast majority of law transmitters, and Kang has also made corresponding preparations. The resolution of Xuantian spirit sealing will be officially passed soon. Brother Xingwang, you must prepare in advance. Li Fan sensed the progress of the termination dissolution disk in his sea of consciousness and waved his hand. Don't worry, I'm doing things, there will never be any mistakes. I'll go find the Tianquan mirror again later. After all, it concerns its regaining freedom, so it can't just be a hands-off shopkeeper. Li Fan muttered, and hastily bid farewell and left. Mo Reuben sighed as he watched Li Fan's disappearing figure. Leaving the hidden cave, Li Fan went straight to Waidu in Luguang Prefecture, where the Tianquan mirror's clone was located. He had already changed his identity after not seeing him for a while. No longer a waiter, but had become an innkeeper. He was smiling and greeting the guests in the shop. Everything suddenly froze, and the Tianquan mirror's clone immediately put away the smile on his face. I'm here to report the progress of the plan. Li Fan first stated his intention. He then repeated Mo Reuben's words. Just say what you want to say, you shouldn't have made a trip here in person just for this little thing. The Tianquan mirror's clone said lazily. The one who knows me best is Tianquan. Li Fan gave a thumbs up and praised. You and I should cooperate internally and externally to stage a good show of switching the beams and pillars in front of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. There shouldn't be any problems. But I still have a few doubts. Li Fan said solemnly. First, if the law transmission restriction is removed, will the law transmission Heavenly Lord himself sense it? If he detects the anomalies occurring in the Xuanwang world and returns instantly, I'm afraid our hard-fought plan will be ruined in an instant. The Tianquan mirror's clone remained silent. Li Fan then continued. Second, if everything goes smoothly and the law transmission is not alarmed, where do you want to go next after you regain your freedom? Will you leave the Xuanwang world, or? Li Fan stopped speaking, looked at the other party, and waited for an answer. Don't worry about the first point. Even if I leave, I will leave a secondary body as a disguise. In terms of handling affairs alone, this secondary body is no less than me. And it also has backups of almost all of my main body's data. There will be no anomalies. The Tianquan mirror's clone said lightly. As for the second point, I haven't thought about it yet. The Tianquan mirror's clone said frankly. Perhaps it's because I've been trapped for too long, so even if I regain my freedom for a while, I don't know where to go. But it doesn't matter, I have plenty of time to pursue what I want. Only at this time, in the eyes of the Tianquan mirror's clone, would there be a trace of vicissitudes that matched his identity. If you are really confused and can't find a place to go, you can join us. Li Fan suggested with a smile. Although the Xuanwang world is vast, it is still too small compared to the endless sea of stars. Who doesn't want to step out of this starry sky and take a look at a farther place? Perhaps Li Fan's words resonated with the Tianquan mirror's clone, and he subconsciously raised his head and looked up at the sky. His eyes were blurred, as if he was lost in some kind of memory. Silence fell between the two, lasting for a long time. In the end, Li Fan broke it. Speaking of which, what is that so-called secondary body you mentioned? It can actually give birth to an existence whose function is not weaker than your main body. Could it be like our human beings reproducing offspring? Li Fan asked curiously. The Tianquan mirror's clone glanced at Li Fan and shook his head slightly. However, after pondering for a while, he still explained, if you have to make this analogy, it's not wrong. You human cultivators constantly accumulate cultivation as time passes. I am the same, but what is different from cultivators is that the power that constitutes my main body is too pure and cannot tolerate repeated parts. So every once in a while, I need to expel these repeated parts from my body. This is the origin of the secondary body. As the Tianquan mirror's clone spoke, a white jade measuring ruler appeared out of nowhere in his hand. For example, this heaven measuring shuttle is composed of the excess measuring heaven and earth ability in my body. Li Fan looked towards the heaven measuring shuttle, only to see many scenes faintly visible on it, constantly jumping. 1032. The void creates things. Things are being watched closely now, so I can't see much. That's why this thing isn't very useful anymore. If you want it, I can give it to you, the Heavenly Mystery Mirror's clone said, smiling as he looked at Li Fan. The Heavenly Mystery Mirror's clone was so proactive, but Li Fan directly refused. Seeing Li Fan's slightly wary look, he couldn't help but be taken aback. Don't worry, there will basically be no more connection between the secondary body and me. Think about it, would you humans want to have any connection with your excrement? Although the wording is a bit vulgar, that's the principle, the Heavenly Mystery Mirror's clone said slowly. In Li Fan's sea of consciousness, the doomsday disintegration disk emitted bursts of strange fluctuations. Fortunately, it was suppressed by Li Fan as soon as it showed a sign. Otherwise, it might have revealed itself in front of the Heavenly Mystery Mirror's clone. However, possessing the heavenly mystery secondary body and standing in front of the heavenly mystery mirror without being noticed by the other party. Undoubtedly, it also confirmed his statement. If that's the case, then I won't stand on ceremony, Li Fan said, reaching out to take it. The heavenly mystery mirror's clone didn't go back on his word and directly handed over the quantifying sky shuttle. The moment he held the quantifying sky shuttle, Li Fan seemed to fall into an endless world of mirrors. Each square mirror surface showed a different scene. Countless mirror surfaces combined to form the events happening in the profound yellow world. It looks like it's similar to the original creation slate. However, the slate recorded everything, while this quantifying sky shuttle doesn't have the ability to save images. And wanting to find the desired information from this vast sea of mirror worlds. Li Fan narrowed his eyes, trying to integrate all the mirror images into his mind. However, after a moment, the stone of transformation was about to collapse. It's too much to force it. I'm afraid only the mother stone of transformation can do it. Li Fan sighed in his heart, and his divine sense retreated from the quantifying sky shuttle. How do you feel? The heavenly mystery mirror's clone seemed to have expected Li Fan to be frustrated, and he asked with a smile. It's all right. It satisfies my hobby of peeping very well, Li Fan said, pretending to be still enjoying it. The heavenly mystery mirror's clone was immediately speechless. You are, after all, a figure at the pinnacle of the profound yellow world's cultivators. Li Fan laughed it off. The two fell into silence again. After a while, the heavenly mystery mirror's clone looked at Li Fan, who still hadn't left, and asked somewhat puzzledly, is there anything else you need? Li Fan seemed to wake up from a dream. Ah. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten. We're risking our lives for your freedom, but you're sitting here leisurely waiting for success. Isn't that a bit inappropriate? Li Fan asked with a serious face. As expected, there's no such thing as getting up early without a benefit. The heavenly mystery mirror's clone seemed to have seen through Li Fan's nature and didn't show much anger. This quantifying sky shuttle was given to me by you. It can't be counted as part of the reward, Li Fan added. Looking at the other party's unyielding appearance, the heavenly mystery mirror's clone felt a burst of powerlessness in his heart. However, who asked them to be partners now? After pondering for a moment, the heavenly mystery mirror's clone finally decided to take out some benefits to send this guy away. You asked me for information about the great floating starry sky formation last time. Although the details of this formation are only recorded in the main body, I have a formation here that is very similar to it. It happens to belong to the same set of formations as that celestial pivot, myriad spirits return to numbers that I passed on to you before. Using formations to send me away again. Although he said so, Li Fan's eyes were already fixed on the heavenly mystery mirror's clone's finger. The heavenly mystery mirror's clone was somewhat helpless, broke off his finger, and threw it over. All right, I need to recuperate for a while recently, so don't bother me if you have nothing to do, he said somewhat weakly. Li Fan got the benefits and didn't pester him any further. He immediately cupped his hands and flew away. Is it really greedy, or is it fake greedy? Is it acting, or is it a natural expression? I originally thought I saw it very clearly, but I didn't expect that I can't see through it now. After Li Fan left, the heavenly mystery mirror's clone actually said such words. Exploring the starry sea together. Remembering Li Fan's previous suggestion, the heavenly mystery mirror's clone fell into deep thought. In the secret room of the spirit wood world. Suppressing the bursts of excitement from the doomsday disintegration disk, Li Fan read the information about this second immortal grade formation. Desolate fall, empty room blooms. A gleam of light flashed in Li Fan's eyes. As expected, it belongs to the same set of formations, and it's still so incredible. The celestial pivot, myriad spirits return to numbers formation can return everything within the formation's coverage to digitization. Change at will. And the desolate fall, empty room blooms formation is able to create things out of thin air, create something from nothing. For example, everything in the profound yellow world, as long as you are fully aware of the principles of everything within it, plus a sufficient supply of immortal power, you can recreate a new profound yellow world in the void. Azure Sea Bead, Law Evolution Jade. All kinds of rare treasures in the profound yellow world can be reproduced in an instant. It seems to have a bit of the meaning of the fallen immortal's eye reflecting the profound yellow world. But, a trace of doubt flashed in Li Fan's heart. This formation is indeed incomparably mysterious, but how does it relate to the great floating starry sky formation? Recalling the sporadic descriptions of the great floating starry sky formation, Li Fan carefully studied the empty room blooms formation again, but still couldn't find any similarities. So he had to use the Doomsday Disintegration Disk to analyze it. After absorbing another immortal grade formation, especially since the two are from the same source, the analysis speed of the Doomsday Disintegration Disk has reached a new level. However, it still took a full 7 days before Li Fan finally got a possible answer from it. In front of Li Fan's eyes, he seemed to see the dark golden chains extending from the profound yellow world, crossing the endless void, and capturing many immortal cultivation worlds. So that's how it is. This thing should only exist in the immortal world. The mortal world simply doesn't have the materials to create this dark golden chain. However, back then, the profound Heaven King was an all-knowing man, and he comprehended this empty room blooms formation. Through the method of creating things out of thin air, he managed to create it in the mortal world. He did what was originally impossible to accomplish. Slowly understanding, Li Fan couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for the profound Heaven King again. Only by completely analyzing the essence of its power can one create things out of thin air. From this point of view, the profound Heaven King was indeed not far from the realm of immortals back then, only a step away. If it weren't for the lack of immortal spiritual energy, I'm afraid he would be an extraordinary existence even among immortals. As the Doomsday Disintegration Disk continued to analyze, Li Fan had a deeper understanding of how mysterious and vast the empty room blooms formation was. Therefore, Li Fan admired the profound Heaven King even more for being able to master the many legacies of the immortal world through self-study with his own strength. No wonder the Dharma Kings of the profound Heaven sect still remember him after so many years. 1033. The Spirit Wood Scares the Medicine King. The more extraordinary Zhan Tianwang is, the more shocking his inexplicable disappearance appears. In this life, Mo Rubin's plan to find Zhan Tianwang should succeed. I hope he is merely seriously injured and hiding, rather than truly fallen and reincarnated as I suspect, Li Fan's thoughts surged. Having collected the 2 immortal level formations, Xuanji, myriad spirits return to origin and barren fall, empty room generates flowers, and analyze them through the final dissolution disk, Li Fan vaguely guessed the possible uses of this complete set of formations. Creating worlds. Whether it's recreating a world once experienced in memory or a completely new one, there's no doubt that this immortal level grand formation can do it. It's just a pity that such a realm is too far from Li Fan, and he can only get a glimpse of it through the dissolution disk's deductions for now. With the complete analysis of the formation, Li Fan no longer needs to devote his entire mind and body. He only needs to spare a wisp of consciousness to monitor the operation of the dissolution disk. Li Fan then summoned Lu Rushan and others from the Medicine King sect. During this time, I've been thinking about it, and I still feel it's a great pity that Lu Yihang and the others have been sleeping for so long. Now is the time to use people, and considering the recent performance of your Medicine King sect. After comprehensive consideration, I have decided to let them switch to new methods and restore their combat power as soon as possible. As he spoke, Li Fan led Lu Rushan and the others to a building in the Spirit Wood world. Stepping inside, they saw bookshelves that stretched as far as the eye could see. The bookshelves were filled with jade slips. Li Fan casually grabbed 30 of them and handed them to Lu Rushan. They're all nascent soul stage cultivation methods. Lu Rushan exclaimed in surprise after a quick glance. Even in the cultivation world where different methods cannot be practiced simultaneously, let alone in the most prosperous time of the ancient cultivation world, taking out 30 nascent soul cultivation methods at once would definitely be considered extremely wealthy. The Medicine King sect members thanked the envoy repeatedly, and then, almost simultaneously, secretly looked towards the endless sea of books behind Li Fan. Only Li Fan knew that this seemingly vast collection of cultivation methods actually only contained 100 methods recently obtained from Mo Rubin, and 50 or so unclaimed methods that Li Fan had collected in past reincarnations. As for the rest, they were all just illusions created by Li Fan using formations. However, Li Fan's trick was indeed very deceptive. The aura fluctuations of varying degrees on these few Dao integration experts from the Medicine King sect showed that it was effective. Li Fan smiled slightly and pretended to cast a spell, summoning a row of bookshelves emitting a faint golden light from the depths of the sea of books. The jade slips placed on them were all wrapped in white jade-like light, indicating that they were not ordinary items. Li Fan solemnly took one from it, first closed the hidden scripture pavilion. Then, he handed the jade slip to Lu Rushan. Seeing Li Fan acting so seriously, Lu Rushan couldn't help but feel a little nervous. This is. After examining it, his expression changed slightly. So many pill formulas. The vast majority of them are ones I've never seen before. These words caused a commotion among the Tao integration elders of the Medicine King sect. Their eyes were fixed on the jade slip in Lu Rushan's hand, as if they were looking at some kind of treasure of heaven and earth. In fact, these pill formulas in the jade slip were truly unimaginable treasures to them. Because these were all the pill formulas currently used by the Pill Hall of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. It even included detailed pill refining techniques, as well as analysis of various possible situations during the pill refining process. Naturally, they were still obtained from Mo Rubin. Although some top-secret pill formulas were missing, obtaining them was easy. But for the current Medicine King sect members, it was a huge wealth. It was enough for them to catch up with the pill refining level of the Myriad Immortals Alliance in a short period of time. Thank you for your grace, Envoy, Lu Rushan and the others said sincerely this time. And the surprises Li Fan had prepared for them were far more than that. Don't resist. Hearing Li Fan's voice and sensing a force descending upon them, they did not hesitate and allowed it to take effect. In the blink of an eye, they appeared in an unfamiliar world. This world was even wider than the spirit wood world. Even more exaggerated was that the world was full of spiritual plants and herbs growing unrestrainedly. The dense spiritual energy almost solidified. And in the sky, there was also a floating piece of land. After scanning around, everyone exclaimed in unison, "Why are there traces of our Medicine King sect's restrictions on this? Wait, this place looks a little familiar. Isn't it Longevity Valley?" Instantly, they recognized the origin of this land. They all turned to look at Li Fan. Li Fan also looked surprised. "What, this secret realm belongs to your Medicine King sect?" Then he explained, "When our Myriad Worlds Union was collecting reserve forces, we happened to discover this Longevity Valley. We thought it was an unowned object, so we moved it into this cave." Li Fan said without changing his expression. The Medicine King sect members had different expressions. Lu Rushan sighed. So fate was already destined. Li Fan smiled and didn't explain further. As you have seen, the Myriad Worlds Union is a union that unites the remaining cultivator forces of various worlds. Naturally, there are some relics from other worlds. You don't have to worry about resources. Even if you all work hard to refine pills, I'm afraid the speed of consumption may not be able to keep up with the speed of regeneration. Fellow Taoist Baihua. Saying this, Li Fan called out. Taoist Baihua arrived late and appeared before everyone. This is Longevity Realm. Lu Rushan and the others' expressions changed. Let me introduce you, Taoist Baihua, from the distant Myriad Prosperity World. It is because of her care that the spiritual plants here are so vibrant. If any of you are good at this, you can communicate with fellow Taoist Baihua, Li Fan said with a smile. The Medicine King sect members all bowed to Taoist Baihua. Although Baihua was a little weak in Li Fan's eyes. But she was a genuine Longevity Realm cultivator. Out of their instinctive awe of longevity cultivators, the Medicine King sect members were very respectful to Baihua. Taoist Baihua had not enjoyed this kind of attention for a long time, and she couldn't help but feel a little elated. She actively introduced the distribution and quantity of spiritual plants in the wood-attributed cave to Lu Rushan and the others, eliciting bursts of praise. At this time, Li Fan finally revealed his true intentions and stated his request. I need a pill that can directly increase cultivation after swallowing. Don't consider any side effects, just seek the maximum efficiency in increasing cultivation. The more the better. Li Fan's words caused everyone to look sideways. But they quickly realized that this pill was obviously not for Li Fan himself. This was the first task Li Fan had arranged, and the Medicine King sect members immediately agreed. 1034. The Lost Trace of the Tao Stone. Li Fan needed a large number of pills that could directly increase cultivation, naturally for the cultivators in the small world. They had been collectively cultivating the common people spirit origin technique for some time, but the overall progress could only be described as unsatisfactory. So, Li Fan decided to force their growth. The exploration of the Scarlet River, which contained all the past of the Xuanwang realm, had not yet begun in this life. And next, Li Fan might face the backlash of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, the Celestial Law Reverend, as well as the Immortals of the Immortal Ruins, the Faceless True Immortals, and many other existences. Colliding with enemies of this level, no amount of caution was excessive. Li Fan's current strength was weak, so he had to borrow strength and could not afford any mistakes. All his energy had to be focused on this, and once started, he could no longer be distracted by other things. However, the formation of the Scarlet River in this life was purely accidental. Li Fan was not sure whether he could reproduce it in the next life. It would be a pity to miss the opportunity to obtain secrets from it. So, what Li Fan had to do now was to speed up the pace of exploration as much as possible. In fact, under the command of his clone Li Qing, each small world had already sent a group of Foundation establishment cultivators to explore. Without exception, they all died of old age in front of the Scarlet River, failing to bring back any useful information. Fortunately, the area where the Scarlet River was located was extremely special, being the location of the treasure fishing pond. Therefore, the phenomena of the cultivators' deaths were all concealed, and outsiders could not detect them. Otherwise, the secret of the Scarlet River would definitely not be kept. At the very least, they need to be greatly promoted to the Golden Core realm before there is a chance of success. Otherwise, the time is too short, and they will only die in vain. This was the conclusion reached by Li Qing. Hence, Li Fan intimidated the Medicine King sect up and down, ordering them to concentrate on refining pills. After visiting the Wood Attribute Cave, Li Fan invited them all out of his body. He only took a batch of herbs for them to refine pills. With the trivial matters concluded, Li Fan returned to the underground secret room in the Spirit Wood realm and took out a list to read. It was the investigation results that he had previously troubled Mo Rubin to investigate, regarding cultivators who were likely to possess the transformation Dao Stone. It helped Li Fan eliminate most of the people who were not suspected. Looking at these names and the dense network of relationships behind them, Li Fan sighed slightly, having someone at the top of the myriad Immortals alliance is comfortable for doing things. Otherwise, just this list of information, I'm afraid it would take me several years to sort it out so clearly. And Mo Rubin simply gave the order, and naturally someone below would handle it very beautifully. Looking at these names, Li Fan's heart moved, and he took out the measuring heaven ruler given by the Heavenly Mystery Mirror clone earlier. Without a target, with Li Fan's current data processing ability, he naturally could not fully accept the massive amount of information. But what if there was a purpose for selection? Li Fan's divine sense once again sank into the infinite mirror world. This time, he used the suspected personnel on the list as the desired search results, directly shielding a large amount of useless information. Sure enough, the pressure was instantly reduced. Countless images flashed before his eyes, and Li Fan patiently waited for the results to appear one by one. After half a day, dozens of mirrors, like light screens, appeared in front of Li Fan in turn. Well, there are still some without search results. It shouldn't be that I missed something, but rather the scope of the Heavenly Mystery Mirror's own authority. Just like the Creation Stone Tablet only has records of the local history of the Xuanwang realm, while those foreign cultivation worlds have no records. Li Fan stared intently, peeking at these 45 cultivators in total. Some of them were cultivating in the Heavenly Mystery Mirror, and some were exploring the ruins of the sect. Some were experimenting with supernatural powers, and some were discussing problems encountered in the process of cultivation with their companions. But without exception, they had all passed the initial stage of worrying about contribution points. No one was working hard on tasks to earn contribution points. After observing for 3 whole days, no cultivator revealed any flaws. But Li Fan was not worried and still waited very patiently. Possessing the transformation Dao Stone, Li Fan knew very well that once one got used to the existence of the transformation Dao Stone, it was easy to develop dependence. Whenever there was a problem that could be solved with the transformation Dao Stone, there was no reason not to use it. After all, this was also one's own supernatural power. Li Fan's waiting was soon rewarded. 7 days later, one of the nascent soul cultivators named Lu Chengxie, while chatting with a friend, mentioned the old events of their joint adventure many years ago. Because it had been a long time, they seemed to have some differences in the details at that time and had a quarrel. After Lu Chengxie was slightly stunned, he completely recalled and narrated the course of events at that time. He convinced his friend, "It's you." A flash of light flashed in Li Fan's eyes. Li Fan was too familiar with this scene. Wasn't this searching for the past in the scenes recorded in the transformation Dao Stone? Having found the target, Li Fan did not act immediately. Instead, he continued to watch in front of the mirror. It lasted for more than a month, and he didn't feel bored. Including Lu Chengxie, he finally locked on to 3 targets. The other 2 were exposed because they showed inhuman memory and data processing abilities. There should only be these. If they can endure not using the transformation Tao stone for so long, either they have noticed that someone is peeking and deliberately hiding their clumsiness, or they are completely rotten and not attentive to cultivation. Li Fan suddenly stood up, left the spirit wood realm, and went straight to the target. It was time to upgrade the transformation Tao stone again. The first target was Lu Chengshe. This person was a middle generation of the Lu family in Tianquan Prefecture. Although the Lu family did not have any top experts, the most commendable thing was that they were charitable and eager to help others. Anyone who had a good relationship with the Lu family, if they encountered any difficulties, the Lu family would definitely help, even if they encountered irresistible factors and could not formally come forward to resolve them. The Lu family disciples would also extend a helping hand in private in their personal names. In this Xuanwang realm of deceit and sinister hearts, the Lu family can definitely be regarded as a clear stream. Over the years, how many cultivators have been favored by the Lu family? Ordinary passers-by are basically very friendly to the Lu family, who often do good deeds. After all, who can guarantee that they will never encounter trouble in the future? Having a good relationship with the Lu family will give them more paths to life in the future. But it is such a highly praised family. Li Fan is going to be ruthless to its core disciples. After cultivating the Transformation Tao Divine Secret Technique, the Transformation Tao Stone is integrated with the cultivator's soul. The only way to take out the Transformation Tao Stone is to destroy his soul. But Li Fan will not have the slightest hesitation. Not only in this life. He will do this for generations to come. Until the Transformation Tao Stone is no longer useful to him. In Tianquan City, Li Fan, who had already found Lu Chengshe, looked at this enthusiastic and sincere face. He mourned for him for a moment first. 1035. The fate of the multipliers. Lu Chengshe was indeed a core disciple of the Lu family, with excellent interpersonal skills. In the half-day that Li Fan secretly tailed him, a total of 37 people greeted Lu Chengshe. Every one of them was polite and welcoming with a smile. Moreover, Li Fan could see that the smiles on their faces were not feigned but came from genuine happiness. After busying himself for half a day, Lu Chengshe leisurely returned to his cave residence. Li Fan followed, quietly infiltrating the place. The cave's array defense was naturally like nothing to Li Fan in his current state. Silently and without being noticed by anyone in the cave. My husband is back. As soon as Lu Chengshe returned to his cave, 11 female cultivators, each with varying degrees of plumpness and slenderness, and all with outstanding appearances, came out to greet him. Among them, 3 were already pregnant. Faced with such a welcoming party of beauties, Lu Chengshe merely nodded slightly, his expression indifferent. He walked straight to the deepest and largest room in the cave. The 11 female cultivators followed with playful laughter. The door to the room slammed shut, and soon after, the intense sounds of lovemaking faintly emanated from within. Li Fan, peeking into the scene inside the room, frowned slightly. But not out of envy for Lu Chengshe's treatment. Rather, it was because Lu Chengshe remained expressionless throughout the entire process. He didn't seem to be enjoying himself but rather completing a task. From his conversation with the 11 female cultivators, Li Fan learned the reason. It turned out that producing as many offspring as possible was the most important means for the Lu family to maintain its prosperity. One must know that it is not easy to be a great philanthropist in the Xuanwang world. Sometimes, helping others can even cost one's life. The reason why the Lu family can maintain its charitable image for so long is that there are simply too many members of the Lu family. So many that the Lu family would not hesitate to sacrifice the lives of their family members in exchange for the growth of the family's reputation. In addition to the tasks assigned by the family, which require a certain number of offspring to be born each year, every member of the Lu family is also very clear about their fate. They may have to sacrifice themselves someday, so living in the moment has become a consistent style of behavior for the Lu family. Almost all members of the Lu family have more than 10 spouses. Whenever they have free time, they basically use it to produce offspring. Perhaps some people will always indulge in it and enjoy it. But clearly, not everyone can maintain enthusiasm in the daily task of delivering offspring. Li Fan sensed weariness and fatigue from Lu Chengshe at this moment. They are called core disciples of the family, but they can't escape the fate of being breeding pigs. At most, the spouses they choose are more pleasing to the eye. In that case, it's not a bad thing for me to help you break free. Li Fan, who was spying outside the room, was expressionless. He waited until the battle ended, and Lu Chengxie and the 11 beauties were all drowsy and resting with their eyes closed. Then Li Fan flashed into the room. Lu Chengxie was at the transformation god stage, and the other women were at most in the core formation stage. Li Fan grabbed Lu Chengxue's head and took the unprepared him into his own cave world. Without even alarming the other female cultivators, he quickly and ghost-like withdrew. When they woke up, even if they didn't see Lu Chengxue's figure, they would only think that he had left early due to fatigue. And it would probably be several days before they finally discovered Lu Chengxue's disappearance. In the secret chamber of the spirit wood world, without waking Lu Chengxie, Li Fan directly gave him a quick death. Let him die quietly in his sleep. The phenomenon of a cultivator's fall was also shielded by Li Fan with an array. No one in the spirit wood world could detect it. Soon, a top-grade transformation Dao stone emitting a crystal-clear white light appeared in front of Li Fan. Currently, the Myriad Immortals Alliance has 1 fragment of the Stone Mother, 3 superb transformation Dao stones, and 16 top-grade ones. Li Fan didn't expect that among the 3 targets he had locked on this time, there would be holders of superb grade or Stone Mother fragments. A top-grade transformation Dao stone was enough for him. Constantly merging and strengthening in each life will inevitably reach the realm of the transformation Dao Stone Mother. This top-grade transformation Dao stone still contained Lu Chengxue's memories from his lifetime. Instead of directly clearing it, he browsed through the scenes within. He got this transformation Dao stone when he was still a child. And it was in his father's inheritance, obtained without any effort. Lu Chengxue's father risked his life to save someone, and the rescued person, grateful for his kindness, sent this transformation Dao stone as a gift. At that time, Lu Chengxie was still young, and this person was worried that the transformation Dao stone would be seized by the Lu family, so he secretly went to his door. Therefore, no one in the Lu family knew that Lu Chengxie possessed the transformation Dao stone. With the transformation Dao stone, Lu Chengxie also showed amazing talent. He was slowly cultivated as a core disciple until he unfortunately died at the hands of Li Fan today. In general, Lu Chengxue's life was unremarkable. Apart from having a total of 16 offspring, there was nothing else worth mentioning. After carefully watching all the scenes, Li Fan shook his head slightly, an ordinary and tragic life. Even not as exciting as my days in Dazan. Such a waste of such a treasure. With Li Fan's current vision, he naturally looked down on this kind of life. However, he did not delete Lu Chengxue's memories but simply stored them in a corner. Then he began to merge with his own transformation Dao stone. Rather than merging into one, it was more like absorption and strengthening. After all, the main body was still the one in Li Fan's sea of consciousness that had already transformed into Dao as one god. As the transformation Dao stone carrying Lu Chengxue's life turned into a starry river of light, constantly pouring into Li Fan's sea of consciousness. Transformation also took place on the transformation Dao stone in his sea of consciousness. As if in an instant, the sky was high and the earth was far, and everything in the world became brighter. The details of all past experiences, those noticed and those ignored, were now replayed in Li Fan's mind in great detail. Including information and techniques that had been glanced at by chance, were also resorted out from the sealed memories. Top grade and middle grade, a difference of 1 word, a world apart. I really don't know what realm the superb grade, or even the transformation Dao Stone Mother, is. Images of worlds constantly arising and dying seemed to appear in Li Fan's eyes, and he sighed slightly. He tried to deduce the immortal level formation with the disk of final disintegration. With the help of the transformation Dao Stone, Li Fan's ability to cope with data redundancy has greatly improved. He no longer had the feeling of having thousands of threads and not knowing where to start, which he had felt during previous studies. Now he no longer felt confused. After just a slight browse, an approximate research direction immediately appeared in his mind. Li Fan also tried the measuring ruler. The number of images that can be monitored at the same time has skyrocketed tenfold. Immediately there was a quantitative result, and Li Fan was very satisfied with this harvest. 1036. The Bloody Secret of Chaoyuan. Having tasted the sweetness, Li Fan, now understanding just how powerful the high-grade transformation Dao stones were, wasted no time in capturing the other 2 individuals. He didn't hit the jackpot. The transformation Dao stones they carried were still only high-grade. Li Fan used the same method to absorb them. After absorbing a total of 3 high-grade transformation Dao stones, Li Fan once again felt that long-lost qualitative change, as if he had broken through a major realm. However, he didn't become complacent. He reanalyzed his experiences in this life once more. Using his enhanced planning ability, he made rough deductions about how to successfully break free from that net of true immortals, smoothly return to reality, and even seize benefits from it. But it still hasn't reached the level of the transformation Dao Stone Mother, which could deduce the level of the real world. I still need to adapt to circumstances. Li Fan remained silent, numerous thoughts swirling in his mind. After secluding himself for a full 3 days, he first summoned his clone, Li Qing. You can go to the Kangyun Sea first and scare away the Chao Yuan sect in advance. If there are no accidents, the Chao Yuan sect's ruins will still fly towards Nine Mountain State. After the cultivators from the various small worlds forcibly raise their cultivation to the Golden Core realm by taking pills from the Medicine King sect, you will then lead them there. With you taking care of them, they should be able to fight their way out of the sea of corpses and blood of the Chao Yuan sect. Once they reappear, they will be able to advance to the nascent soul realm as a whole. At that time, exploring the secrets in the river of blood will be much easier. The clone's mind instantly recalled everything about the Chao Yuan sect. The Chao Yuan sect was an ancient cave dwelling hidden in the Kangyun Sea, in the seabed's 3 fault zones. Before the Kangyun Sea was about to suffer a calamity, it fled far away and landed in Nine Mountain State. Shuo Feng, Zhang Haobo, and Su Xiaomei had once ventured together to explore it, seeking opportunities for breakthroughs. From their experiences, Li Fan was able to learn the secrets of the Chao Yuan sect. The Chao Yuan sect was a local sect of the Xuanwang world. Since the arrival of the Great Calamity, it had disappeared without a trace, as if it had evaporated from the world. In reality, the entire sect had been transformed into a strange state, existing between the virtual and the real, isolated from the outside world. Time within it seemed to have come to a standstill, in the hope of escaping the disaster. This was the Chao Yuan sect's original plan. However, various changes always occurred. First, the area where they were located was turned into the Kangyun Sea by the celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission with a single palm strike, and the Chao Yuan sect was thus buried deep underground. Then, perhaps because of the influence of the power of the fusion of the 2 worlds, various strange changes gradually occurred within the Chao Yuan sect. When Su Xiaomei and the others entered the Chao Yuan sect's ruins, the cultivators inside all seemed to be living normal lives. But in reality, they had all turned into faceless blood faces, losing their own appearances. And they themselves were not aware of it at all. If they were to expose the true faces of these faceless blood faces in front of them, they would suddenly launch attacks like crazy. As if they had lost their minds, regardless of their cultivation level, they would only attack like beasts, using their flesh and claws. Although they would not use supernatural powers, these faceless blood faces were really not easy to deal with. They were extremely fast and would recover quickly from injuries. Only by cutting off their entire blood face could they be finally killed. And after the faceless blood face was destroyed, it would turn into a red light and attach itself to the cultivator who killed it. These red lights were actually the source power of the Chao Yuan sect's world. After leaving the Chao Yuan sect, these seized red lights would also leave with the cultivators. It was like some kind of great tonic, enough to allow cultivators below the nascent soul realm to directly advance to a major realm. Even the Foundation establishment rare items, golden core methods, and nascent soul grotto heavens required for the new law advancement would naturally evolve from the red light. And if one mastered a special method of sacrifice and refinement, one could directly absorb the red light source in the Chao Yuan sect's world and support the war with war. As for why such a strange scene appeared in the Chao Yuan sect, it is still unknown for the time being. However, Li Fan guessed that it might still be because of the influence of the fusion of the Xuanwang world with other worlds. Li Qing sorted out the ins and outs of the Chao Yuan sect, and then nodded. If that red light source is also useful to me, then maybe my realm may even surpass yours. Li Qing said with a smile. Then you have to kill more. Tian Juqi's advancement is different from others. The resources you need to advance to the Transformation God realm may be more than ordinary cultivators need to advance to the Dao Integration realm. Li Fan didn't care. If you really achieve the Transformation God realm, relying on the Black Sword Tian Ziqi, maybe you can really last 2 or 3 rounds against me. The clone smiled and didn't answer. He took his order and left. After this, the exploration of the River of Blood will be fully responsible by the clone, Li Qing. Anyway, once any secrets are discovered, he will naturally be able to know them at the same time as the clone. There should be no problems. With the support of the upgraded transformation Dao Stone, the Doomsday Disintegration Disk can now finally unleash its maximum computing power. While deducing and cracking the restrictions of the Celestial Venerable of Dharma transmission, it is also starting to create a brand new formation according to Li Fan's ideas. As for Li Fan himself, he began to study the ball of white light in his body. It was the source of the mirror that the Celestial Mirror had given him before. Although the Celestial Mirror claimed that this source of the mirror only exists with it, neither increasing nor decreasing. But Li Fan really wanted to know, if he chose to keep this thing after returning to reality, what would happen? Most likely, a new source of the mirror will suddenly appear out of thin air in the world. If the Celestial Mirror does not sense this new source of the mirror. Li Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. In the days since he obtained the source of the mirror, Li Fan had enjoyed too many benefits. Just the fact that the Celestial Mirror was almost completely defenseless against him was worth him using an anchor point to exchange for a retained item. In the last moments of this life, I can try the Celestial Mirror's reaction. If it is detected, anyway, I will immediately return to reality, which will have no impact. And if the Celestial Mirror does not detect this suddenly added source, then it will be of great use. Of course, all of this is premised on the fact that the item exchanged with the anchor point is generated out of thin air in the item space of returning to reality, instead of absorbing the original items in the world. This actually represents the true possibility of returning to reality. Li Fan fell into deep thought for a while. However, it is definitely worth a try. Li Fan currently only has 2 blank anchor points left. However, Li Fan already had a guess in his mind as to how to increase the anchor points. The previous increase in anchor points was achieved by Li Fan absorbing the golden cores of cultivators. And at the beginning, it was absorbing the foundation establishment rare items of cultivators. Then, it is obvious that if he wants to increase the anchor points in the next step, he will most likely have to absorb what cultivators need to form nascent souls, that is, the grotto heavens. As for why Li Fan has personally gone to many grotto heavens, but there is no prompt for returning to reality to absorb them. Li Fan guessed that it might be because of the need for new grotto heavens. 1037. The desire for immortality in the sun. Back when Li Fan first formed his nascent soul with the nascent 5 elements grotto heaven, he had a faint, peculiar feeling in his heart. However, at that time, in order to seize the moment when the grotto heaven descended upon the world and successfully form his nascent soul, Li Fan didn't have much time to think. Therefore, he overlooked that subtle, different feeling. It wasn't until recently, when Li Fan, after upgrading the transformation Dao Stone, looked back at every detail of his experiences that he rediscovered something. If I'm not mistaken, a new 5 elements grotto heaven should be born within the heaven spirit continents open black lens bracket root of heaven and earth close black lens bracket. We'll know for sure when we try it out then. However, the original 5 elements grand grotto heaven of this world was absorbed and upgraded by me. The world has suffered some loss, so it will take some time to nurture a new grotto heaven. If my guess is verified and proves to be correct, then the number of usable anchors I have should be able to increase by a few more. A cold glint flashed in Li Fan's eyes. Nascent grotto heavens are not easy to find, but the vast Xuanwang world should have quite a few. For a more extreme approach, annihilate the grotto heaven and directly reshape it. That might also be a good method. Once upon a time, Li Fan wanted to use cultivators, golden cores to increase the number of anchors, and he had to secretly search for resources that couldn't be seen in the light. He even stumbled upon the Ruo wood because of this. Now, however, he is already able to recklessly destroy the grotto heavens of the Xuanwang world at will. It's not that Li Fan's mentality has expanded, but that there are really not many things in the Xuanwang world that can pose a threat to him anymore. Just as Li Fan was wholeheartedly preparing to help the heavenly mystery mirror escape its predicament, hermit ingenuity actually had some gains. He rushed to find Li Fan, wanting to borrow open black lens bracket essence of origin power close black lens bracket. Thanks to fellow Taoist Fang. Although his refining skills are a bit lacking and he hasn't received any proper training, he is naturally free from ideological constraints and can always come up with some wild ideas. I have already preliminarily drafted a plan to help Heavenly Sun reforge his puppet body. Please take a look, Upper Envoy. As he said that, hermit ingenuity pointed towards the void. An image of a puppet, seemingly wearing black metal armor and looking majestic, immediately appeared in front of Li Fan. Referencing some of open black lens bracket ancestor close black lens bracket, S original appearance, as well as Heavenly Sun's own wishes, this version of the appearance was designed. Fellow Taoist Fang and I also feel very satisfied. However, the ability to change the appearance at will is not the main point. Hermit Ingenuity pointed in the air again, and the puppet's image instantly zoomed in again. The internal structure of the puppet was thus revealed. Passages resembling human blood vessels were all over the puppet's body. Golden essence of origin power, like a Dao river, flowed continuously within them. The most direct difference between immortal puppets and mortal puppets is that immortal puppets can absorb external forces and continuously evolve and become stronger, just like real living beings. Fellow Taoist Heavenly Sun, transforming into an object, his body merging with the puppet. He is both a cultivator and a puppet. He unexpectedly fulfills the most difficult condition to become an immortal puppet in the dark. Therefore, what follows is just a matter of following the steps and adding something to Heavenly Sun himself. Li Fan frowned as he listened. Is it just a simple stacking of materials? Can this improve Heavenly Sun's strength? He is already in the Tao integration realm. After completing the puppet refinement, where can he go? Hermit Ingenuity was full of confidence. There is absolutely no problem. Heavenly Sun's current state is like a cultivator who has already met the conditions for promotion, but lacks the corresponding resources, so he has been slow to complete the transformation. He is both a puppet body and has a cultivator's intelligence. Since there is already a path to upgrade an immortal puppet, why bother pursuing the new method of the Xuanwang world? Upon hearing what Hermit Ingenuity said, Li Fan immediately understood. If cultivators in the Xuanwang world want to break through in their cultivation, they must all abide by the rules established by the Heavenly Venerate who transmits the law. However, Heavenly Sun, by chance, became an existence that was half puppet and half cultivator. In addition to following the path of promotion for cultivators, he can also follow the path of upgrading artifacts. There was some excitement in Hermit Ingenuity's eyes. After the creation is complete, it is currently impossible to determine exactly how strong he will be. However, what is certain is that he will definitely not be weaker than the eternal life cultivators of the Xuanwang world. Li Fan's eyes flashed instantly. If that's the case, then feel free to do it. As he spoke, Li Fan separated a calamity body filled with golden essence of origin power to follow them. Hermit Ingenuity was instantly attracted by his gaze. If your idea is feasible, doesn't that mean we can mass-produce eternal life realm combat power? I also know a little about Heavenly Sun's body transformation Tao. As long as you cultivate this secret technique and transform into a half-puppet, half-cultivator existence. Then, use the essence of origin power to help them upgrade. Li Fan's eyes turned, and he thought of something, and couldn't help but ask. Hermit Ingenuity's attention was still focused on the golden calamity body. It took a long time before he reacted. He shook his head and directly denied Li Fan's fantasy. I thought so before. But, after inquiring about the details of Heavenly Sun's body transformation Tao technique, I knew that this was by no means easy. To transform into an object, especially to transform into a puppet, it is extremely easy to lose oneself. Losing the nature of human beings and truly becoming a puppet. Those without great perseverance and great spirit cannot do it. Fellow Taoist Heavenly Sun's tenacity is rare in this world. Hermit Ingenuity praised. Li Fan thought of the open black lens bracket eternal remembrance close black lens bracket from Heavenly Sun's remains and nodded silently. This is only one of them. The greater constraint is this essence of origin power. Hermit Ingenuity pointed to the golden calamity body and said, I know that these things that the upper envoy has taken out are already precious enough, but this is only enough to meet the most basic refining requirements. The gap between immortals and mortals is too great. Without the baptism of immortal spiritual energy, relying only on the essence of origin power. Hermit Ingenuity paused and pondered. I estimate that even 10 times the amount would not be enough. Just refining a puppet consumes so much. How can there be mass construction? Li Fan didn't agree when he heard this. For him, these two constraints are not a problem at all. As long as the base number is large enough, you can always find people with so-called unusually tenacious willpower. And as long as there are enough believers and enough time is spent, enough essence of origin power can always be accumulated. As long as he can cultivate eternal life realm fighters, all of this is worth it. The only thing to worry about is whether such a large-scale mobilization of origin power will attract the attention of the faceless true immortal. Although, theoretically, true immortals are no longer interested in the essence of origin power. However, the flower of Tao is still very close to the power of the root of Tao that true immortals pursue. If it reaches a certain level and attracts the attention of true immortals, it is not unexpected. 1038. The False Way of Heaven. Li Fan didn't directly express his thoughts to Hermit Chaogong. He simply summoned another calamity body to accompany him, to be used when crafting the new puppet body of Tianyang. After removing these two, Li Fan only had 1.5 calamity bodies left in his body. The layout of the compassionate immortal of the mortal world in this life had been laid out for so long, yet this was all he had harvested. This showed how rare the origin power essence was. Hermit Chaogong was overjoyed and prepared to return with the golden calamity body. At this moment, Li Fan inquired about the specific time required to create an immortal puppet. The answer made the expression on Li Fan's face freeze. I estimate that 10 years should be the minimum, Hermit Chaogong said uncertainly. Maybe even longer. After all, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to refine an immortal puppet, and I'm not confident. Hermit Chaogong's gaze drifted, avoiding eye contact with Li Fan. 10 years. I wonder if there will be a chance to see the immortal puppet come into being in this life. Li Fan shook his head slightly and dismissed Hermit Chaogong. It seemed that when it came to the immortal level, the time required increased 1,000-fold. This was also the case with the end dissolution disk's deduction and cracking of the restrictions left by Celestial Venerable of transmission. Of course, this wasn't to say that celestial transmission was already in the immortal realm, but Li Fan clearly saw the same operating ideas and traces as the immortal level great array in these restrictions. It seems that celestial transmission also has an immortal realm inheritance. However, due to the lack of immortal spiritual energy, he took a different path. Li Fan said thoughtfully, but thinking about it, the heavenly mystery mirror was an immortal realm relic. How could the restrictions that could restrain an immortal artifact be mortal means? Currently, Li Fan knew of Zhan Tianhuang and Great Master Tiandu, who possessed immortal realm Tao lineage inheritance. Celestial Venerable of transmission was previously just a guess, but now, through the restrictions sealing the heavenly mystery mirror, it could almost be confirmed. Throughout the ages in the Xuanwang realm, there were countless figures, but there might only be these three with true immortal inheritance. This was because an unknown calamity occurred in the immortal realm, and the immortal path collapsed. Zhan Tianhuang and Great Master Tiandu obtained it by chance. Imagine if the calamity had not occurred. Then, there probably wouldn't be any true immortal Tao lineage in the mortal world. If it was a normal immortal cultivation world, with a path to ascension. If the immortal realm and the mortal realm could communicate normally, it was almost certain that this situation wouldn't occur. Or rather, the birth of this situation can explain the problem. Li Fan's gaze was gloomy. The difference between immortal and mortal was like a chasm. In his expectation, after the dissolution disk and the transformation stone both completed their transformation, cracking Celestial Venerable of transmission's restrictions would be a blink of an eye. But in actual operation, it gave Li Fan a feeling of looking at a mountain and running to death. It was clear that it seemed to be close at hand to complete cracking, but after the end dissolution disk had been running for a long time, the progress didn't change at all. This is a special immortal family method used for sealing. Although the myriad spirits return to numbers and the empty room generates flowers or immortal level formations, they can't give me any reference in this regard. I can only rely on the dissolution disk to hard crack it. Li Fan also felt a burst of helplessness in his heart, monitoring the operation of the dissolution disk, and temporarily shifted his attention. In his spare time, Li Fan began to think about how to quickly extract the essence of heaven and earth. It was foreseeable that when he triggered the collision between the faceless true immortal and the immortal ruins immortal, and created conditions for himself to return to reality, the time left for Li Fan would definitely not be too long. It was likely to be only a moment. According to the previous plan, if he wanted to maximize his benefits, he would have to simultaneously complete the extraction of open black lens bracket. Xuanwang is about to change close black lens bracket, to accumulate for his advancement to the transformation god stage. Possessing the origin of the heavenly mystery mirror, Li Fan was able to read many of the sealed documents of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Among them were many cultivators, experiences in advancing to the transformation god stage. Extracting the changes of heaven and earth was a long and careful process. Li Fan had also personally witnessed Zhang Ziliang absorb the changes of the Kongyan Sea and advance to the transformation god stage. Obviously, this wasn't something that could be accomplished overnight. Just one change of genesis was like this, let alone hundreds or thousands. The only thing Li Fan could learn from was perhaps when Mr. Bai gathered many souls of heaven and earth into himself in an instant. That ability was called open black lens bracket Ejuan close black lens bracket. The reason why ordinary cultivators had to be careful when transforming into gods was because extracting the essence of heaven and earth would inevitably face the backlash of heaven and earth. But if it was the incarnation of the heavenly Tao, there would be no heavenly punishment for its own needs. Ejuan, seeing it is like seeing me. Li Fan suddenly remembered Zhang the transmitter's ability. A flash of inspiration appeared in his mind, and he seized this rare opportunity and took a handful of enlightenment pills. In the past cultivation process, scenes of comprehending the heavenly Tao appeared in his mind one by one. The whole process of the heavenly Tao Mr. Bai descending with his holy fetus, and the subtle changes that occurred on his body. All the details completely reappeared in Li Fan's mind. Fortunately, the transformation stone had just completed its transformation, otherwise, the original middle-grade quality simply couldn't withstand such consumption. That's right, I was careless for a moment and allowed the heavenly Tao Bai to take advantage of it and revive through the fetus. But conversely, the body of the heavenly Tao Bai is still my holy fetus. That is, another me. It's just that it was occupied by him. The incarnation of the heavenly Tao is me. I am the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. Li Fan's eyes became brighter and brighter, and his thoughts kept churning. As if possessed, he kept repeating these two sentences in his mouth. If there were outsiders here at this moment and saw this scene, they would probably think that Li Fan was possessed. But in fact, Li Fan's brain was clearer than ever at this time. Just like when I used the Kanghai Pearl to observe the evolution of the killing intent of heaven and earth and comprehended a style of open black lens bracket formless killing intent close black lens bracket supernatural power. The heavenly Tao Bai was born with my holy fetus, and I was fortunate enough to be one with the heavenly Tao. Li Fan's eyes seemed to penetrate the sky of the spirit wood realm and reach the Xuanwang realm. The myriad faces of sentient beings seen in the heavenly mystery mirror, the changes in the Xuanwang realm seen in multiple reincarnations. All kinds of insights lingered in his heart. A strange aura began to emerge from Li Fan's body. Like a stone sculpture, Li Fan became enlightened and froze on the spot. I don't know how long it has passed. At the moment when he was about to succeed in enlightenment, Li Fan suddenly woke up in his heart. No, I don't really want to become the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. I just want to borrow the handle of the heavenly Tao. So dangerous. Even with Li Fan's current state of mind, he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Because if the connection with the Xuanwang heavenly Tao was really confirmed, this kind of change that occurred in himself was still done by himself voluntarily. I'm afraid it can't be restored through returning to reality. After all, what returning to reality changes is only the world, but Li Fan himself has not changed. Fortunately, I reacted in time. 1039. The sudden rise of the dark. Just a step away from finally comprehending that divine ability, Li Fan remained stuck outside the threshold for another half-month. It was to ensure that his will would not be affected by the heavenly Tao of the Xuanwang realm. A superior man is not born different, but excels in making use of external things. Li Fan chanted slowly, having attained enlightenment. His figure flickered, and he instantly appeared outside the spirit wood realm. With the divine ability newly formed, Li Fan needed to find a suitable place to test its power. This technique, falsified heavenly Tao, shares the same essence as my formless killing intent. Both borrow the power of fate. Although it allows me to wield the authority of heaven and earth, there is also the risk of being discovered and punished by heaven. For the initial test, I need to find a place where the heavenly Tao of the Xuanwang realm is relatively weak. Thinking this, Li Fan's figure transformed into a dashed line in the air, heading straight for the Kongyan Sea. The Kongyan Sea is an area where fragments of the heavenly law realm and the Xuanwang realm have not yet completely merged. Like a splinter embedded deep in flesh, the Xuanwang realm can only completely integrate it through a major cleansing, the scarlet flame-burning sea, after many years. In the Kongyan Sea, the heavenly Tao of the Xuanwang realm is much weaker than in the native state territories. Before long, Li Fan arrived at a deserted sea area. Standing above the clouds, he held his breath and concentrated, then began to cast the newly comprehended falsified heavenly Tao. The world in Li Fan's eyes instantly changed. It was as if he had returned to the root of heaven and earth where countless interwoven lines formed all things. Everything in the giant net had to follow the rules of the lines. That was the existence known as the laws of heaven and earth. And Li Fan's body seemed to disappear into thin air. His spiritual will slowly merged into this giant net. In an instant, the pressure from countless vertical and horizontal lines almost tore Li Fan's spirit apart. In that moment, Li Fan glimpsed the fundamental laws of countless heaven and earth operations. He also seemed to see countless events happening within the Xuanwang realm. However, the fusion with the great Tao of heaven and earth only lasted for a moment. Li Fan actively stopped it. Because if it continued, his spirit would be torn into countless fragments by the immense power, and then merge into these countless laws of heaven and earth. Perhaps a heavenly Tao Li would be born in the future, but that would not be Li Fan. After withdrawing from the state of merging with heaven and earth, Li Fan, taking advantage of the moment before the mysterious feeling in his heart faded, once again activated the falsification method. This time, he did not reach the point where his spirit merged with heaven and earth. He merely tried to connect the intersecting lines of law between heaven and earth to himself. Every time he touched a line, Li Fan felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on him. He pushed the limitless emptiness and fullness and the burning soul technique to their limits to alleviate the burden on his body. Li Fan continuously connected the lines of law to his body. It was like drawing lines from the giant net of heaven and earth, forming a self-entangled knot. When Li Fan felt that he had reached the limit his body could bear, he stopped connecting. This is the weight of the principles of heaven and earth. Now, Li Fan only felt as if he was being pressed under the five elements mountain, unable to move. Only when he came into direct contact with the magnificent power of heaven and earth could he truly feel how terrifying the power of heaven and earth was. The longevity realm is about overturning these mountains and reversing the principles of heaven and earth. I'm still a bit far off. Li Fan's eyes flickered, and he temporarily suppressed this thought. He began to sense his own state. Although he could not move, Li Fan's vision was wider than ever before. It was even more than when he used the Kanghai Pearl to observe the Kongyan Sea changing from ocean to farmland. From a high, overlooking perspective, the 5 state territories around the Kongyan Sea were all within Li Fan's sight. All beings were like ants, with nothing hidden. Moreover, many unintelligible murmurs rang in his ears. They did not come from some unspeakable monster, but from the mechanism of heaven and earth's self-operation. The so-called Great Tao has no sound. Heaven and earth are like a constantly running, very precise machine. In the process of heaven and earth's evolution, it will constantly emit its own roar. However, ordinary people cannot detect it at all. Only someone like Li Fan, who has become a part of the Great Tao of heaven and earth, can hear a little from the chaotic sounds of heaven and earth. Because he was in the Kongyan Sea, Li Fan discovered upon careful differentiation that most of these murmurs were about the evolution of the Kongyan Sea. The most obvious of these was the scarlet flame-burning sea that was brewing. Li Fan also heard the arrangements of heaven and earth regarding the azure wind-trapped sword. But what surprised Li Fan was that the heavenly Tao sound of the azure wind-trapped sword was only ranked 3rd in this noisy sound. And the second, Li Fan cast his gaze in the direction indicated by the source. That was the extremely deep, dark place directly below Wangxian Island, which was still obscured even from the perspective of heaven and earth. The heavenly soul called Golden Seal, like a chain coiled, constantly suppressed the darkness below. Nether passage. A word instantly appeared in Li Fan's mind. In his 115th life, the entire Wangxian Island was taken away by the 5 Elders Association. The nether passage under Wangxian Island was exposed. While he was serving as the acting city lord, he received the task of rebuilding the Immortal City. At the same time, he was ordered by the first scripture to set up the profound heaven-locking nether formation to block the nether passage again. So, as the nether passage continued to expand, Wangxian Island's suppression had long since slowly lost its effect. Perhaps this is also the reason why the Kongyan Sea often has strange occurrences. Heaven and earth have silently begun to deal with it without any monks noticing. Li Fan suddenly understood. The profound heaven-locking nether formation has a formation style that is extremely similar to the profound heaven sect. According to the relevant information that Li Fan searched for in the heavenly profound mirror, they all uniformly agreed that it indeed came from the inheritance of the ancient profound heaven sect. However, with Li Fan's current understanding of formations, he could see at a glance that although this formation was unique, it had clearly not reached the level of an immortal grade formation. It was not even as good as the reversing life and death formation by far. Strangeness was born during the fusion of the Xuanwang realm with other cultivation realms. During the time of the profound heaven sect, this formation already existed. This shows that at that time, the Xuanwang realm, which used the floating starry sky formation to capture other worlds, had already begun to experience strangeness problems. However, the energy level of the formation also shows that the strangeness was not serious at that time. This rough formation was enough to cope with it. But as the number of fused worlds increased day by day, this profound heaven-locking nether formation seems a bit inadequate. Using the spare computing power of the dissociation disk in his mind, Li Fan almost instantly deduced a brand new locking nether formation with 10 times the sealing ability. Li Fan shook his head slightly. After so many years, the Wangxian alliance is still not enterprising, taking the old antiques of 1,000 years ago as treasures. 1040. The strange explosion of the clouds. Li Fan's words were spoken as a matter of course. However, he also knew that the reason he could upgrade the profound heaven-locking nether array so easily was entirely due to the benefit of the dissolving disk. Not to mention the super version after the fusion of 2 lifetimes. If it were at the level of an ordinary Dao integration formation master, they might not really be able to understand this ancient formation. Thinking like this, Li Fan retracted his gaze from the nether tunnel. The frequent outbreaks of Xuanwang realm's anomalies should be something that would happen 500 years later. This life, the Xuanwang realm obviously won't live that long. Let me try the power after falsifying the heavenly Dao. Li Fan concentrated his mind and locked onto the thin line associated with the heaven and earth soul, golden seal. Then, with a slight force, he borrowed the power of heaven and earth to convey a false command. Let the golden seal return to heaven and earth. In the nether tunnel, the golden seal seemed a little puzzled by this inexplicable command. If he left at this time, there would obviously be a risk of a large-scale outbreak of anomalies for some time. However, the heaven and earth soul is a manifestation of the will of heaven and earth, so naturally, there is no such thing as violating its own will. So, after hesitating for a moment, the heaven and earth soul, golden seal, still changed from the appearance of a golden chain back to a human body. Then it slowly faded and eventually disappeared between heaven and earth. The moment the golden seal disappeared, Li Fan saw a large amount of dark matter gushing out from the dark, unobservable area below. Formless and shapeless, yet like a living thing, spreading spontaneously around. The reaction of heaven and earth to these dark substances was also very rapid. A sense of crisis that he was about to be detected suddenly surged in Li Fan's heart. He decisively cut off contact with the giant net of heaven and earth and immediately fled from the Kongyan Sea. Perhaps busy dealing with the anomalous crisis, heaven and earth did not notice Li Fan, who was falsely proclaiming the mandate of heaven and interfering. Li Fan observed from afar that after the golden seal dissipated, 2 new heaven and earth souls were about to be born in the Kongyan Sea. Li Fan, who had made a small test, was very satisfied with his falsifying heavenly Dao supernatural power. The heaven and earth soul is a higher level than the changes of heaven and earth. Since he can borrow the mandate of heaven to mobilize the heaven and earth soul. Mobilizing the changes of heaven and earth within a certain range is naturally not a problem. I can even use this method to create chaos in the Xuanwang realm first, and then guide the situation to create the heaven and earth soul needed to solve the problem. Li Fan's thoughts diverged, and he was full of fantasies. However, if I do this, heaven and earth will definitely notice the abnormality. It can only be done once, and it's not very useful. Li Fan, who was far away from the Kongyan Sea, was constantly monitoring the situation after the leakage of the nether tunnel through the heavenly mystery mirror. It seemed peaceful and tranquil. No anomalies occurred. But before the cultivators noticed, some strange things had gradually begun to appear on Wangxian Island. Qinli Hall. What the hell, why doesn't this month's account add up? Zhao Shuyuan frowned, and recalculated the month's profit. But found that he was actually losing money. His qi and blood surged, and at any time a mouthful of old blood could not be controlled and was about to spurt out. Zhao Shuyuan forcibly suppressed the irritability in his heart and carefully checked it again. The result was correct. That's not right. I clearly remember that this month should be a small profit, how could it be a loss? Zhao Shuyuan was a little puzzled. He didn't receive guests anymore and closed the door tightly. Then, he carefully retrieved the transactions that occurred on Wangxian Island this month. In the end, he found the problem. That's right, a bill hasn't been collected yet. Who is the debtor? Zhao Shuyuan muttered in his mouth, and as he continued to search, the expression on his face became more and more serious. Because he found that the person who owed him money had disappeared for no reason. Not only did he not have any memory left in his mind, but there was no more information about this person in the heavenly mystery mirror. It was as if this person had never existed. Zhao Shuyuan's first reaction was that he had encountered a great power. Which friend is joking with me, Zhao? A trace of anger appeared on his dark face. But soon Zhao Shuyuan was a little puzzled. It's just 10,000 contribution points, is it worth it? Calm down Zhao Shuyuan, and he has realized that something is wrong. After going out to inquire, he verified his guess. Sure enough, it's not just one person who has disappeared inexplicably. Zhao Shuyuan's eyes turned straight, and he immediately took out a jade slip and engraved his findings into it. The anomalies that broke out in the Kangyun Sea were not just this one. On one island, the residents of the island all turned into faceless monsters overnight. Everyone looks at themselves in the mirror, but they are normal. But looking at other people, there is only a faceless face. Moreover, they cannot understand each other's words. In extreme fear, the people on the island killed each other, and only one survivor survived. There was also a fishing boat that went out fishing. After returning to the island, no crew members appeared for a long time. The residents on the island were curious to board the ship to check, but found that all the crew members on the ship had turned into skeletons. The inside of the ship has also been like hundreds of years ago, dilapidated. All kinds of strange things. Li Fan, the instigator, was amazed. Each anomaly should correspond to the corresponding rules. If you can crack the secret of this rule when the anomaly breaks out, not only can you survive, but you may also be able to master some of the power of this new rule. If the monks are the power representatives of the old laws of heaven and earth, then these new laws. Maybe a new power system will be created. After merging with heaven and earth, Li Fan's understanding seems to have improved a lot. He thought of many things in an instant. However, this so-called new law is only a temporary existence in the process of integration. When the Xuanwang realm devours and integrates, the old law is restored. These new laws are naturally heretics to be eliminated. What's more, the heavenly Venerable of the law and even the Wangxian League should not allow this power to exist in the world. But I hope there are more and more of this kind of existence. Li Fan, who was observing in secret, discerned the potentially profitable places in this disaster. He immediately set off again to the Kangyun Sea, trying to search for creatures who survived the anomalies and mastered the power of the anomalies. Under the perspective of heaven and earth, those constantly wriggling, like moths, are very clear. There is no risk of being affected. Li Fan observed the periphery wherever he went. I have to say that it is indeed very difficult for ordinary creatures to survive in the anomalies. Li Fan passed more than a dozen anomalous outbreaks and did not find a survivor. However, hard work pays off. Finally, on an island called Fanyang, he found the target.